I'll call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. First item on our agenda this evening is roll call.
Barraza. Here. Lancey.
Here.
Beck. Here. Pieper. Malone.
Here.
Solfa. Wolf.
Here.
Barron. Here. Lehman. Here. Ayazi.
Here.
Malay.
Here.
Ewer.
Here.
Saron.
Here.
That's 13. I'm sorry, 12.
Up next is a reminder, if you come up to use the mic tonight to address the committee, just make sure that you can see the green light on and that you can hear yourself in the background. Item 3 is approval of the minutes for April 9th, 2024, May 28th, 2024, June 25th, 2024, and July 9th, 2024. And there is one correction that we have to have on the July 9th, 2024. It states that the grant for the food pantry was from Karina Villa, and it's actually from Lauren Underwood, Congressman Underwood. Okay, and Alderman Pieper and Solfa have shown up. So we are all here. Any items to be removed, added, or changed this evening? Anything? Okay. We'll move on to matters from the public for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Is there anybody here with anything not on the agenda? Okay. We'll move on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. Alderman Beck.
Yes, the consent agenda reads as follows. For approval, the COW executive session minutes for January 9th, 2024, January 23, 2024, January 30th, 2024, February 13th, 2024, March 12th, 2024, April 9th, 2024, and June 25th, 2024. Ordinance 2024-55, proposing SSA 71 for Ashton Ridge subdivision. Resolution 2024-106-R, authorization to execute a contract for the 2024-2025 snow and ice removal services with Kozak Custom Landscapes. Resolution 2024-107-R, approving a contract with electric conduit construction to perform 15 kV and 34 kV underground circuit installation along Norcross Drive. Your Honor, I'd move we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion by Beck, second by Malay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. I do need to go back to item 3. We did not have a motion to approve those minutes.
I was wondering. I was so moved.
Motion by Solfa, second by Vogelsinger. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carries as well. All right, then we will move on to item number 7, which is ordinance 2024-057, conditional use for massage therapy establishment at 103 East Wilson, Zen Loft Collective.
Thanks, Alderman Wolf. Yes, this ordinance, ordinance 2024-057, is for a conditional use to allow a massage therapy use on the second floor of 103 East Wilson. That is where the Zen Loft Collective is recently opened. The applicant is Emily Beaupre. She is a massage therapist with 23 years experience and has had her own practice for 11 years. The use would be a smaller space within the larger Zen Loft space, and they offer yoga and other instructional services and some other activities on their website. This would be an extension of some of those uses in terms of offering several different massage types within the space. At the public hearing, the applicant went over their background and experience and did note that they would be offering prenatal massage as well at this location as another offering. There were 2 members of the public that addressed the commission, both speaking in support of the proposal, and one being a local business owner and one that was also a client, but then the other also being a client. One noting that they would probably likely visit other shops and services before and after their use of the services. And the second speaker also spoke of different partnerships that they've worked on with their businesses together. There were 19 letters of support that were provided to staff that the Plan Commission was given as part of the public hearing record that were included in your report tonight. And the Plan Commission did recommend approval by a vote of 5-0 with the conditions that are outlined in the ordinance before you tonight. And staff does recommend approval with the ordinance as presented this evening.
Anyone have any questions, comments? I thought there was quite a list of conditions, and I imagine that they are well aware of everything that was listed in there that would be applicable to the use, conditional use.
Yes, they were, and the applicant is here tonight if you do have any questions for them too.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, if you want us to come up and talk about
Yeah,
our
if you want to
business.
come up and talk about the business, I think that's a good thing we should all know about and what you plan on doing there.
I'm Emily Beaupre. I am a licensed massage therapist, like Drew said, for going on 23 years now. And I've been practicing for about that long. I was a elementary school teacher for many years, Montessori included. I'm a substitute teacher and yoga teacher, as well as a licensed massage therapist. That's my full-time job now. I'm sorry, what was the question?
It was just to talk about your business and what you do and what your expectations are for the site.
If you want to give out like your phone number, website, whatever, rates, anything you want.
Sure. So in that presentation from last, there were like links that we could link to look at the website. So I have an online booking platform. I use Massage Book. So that's where people can go and select a service, select the time, and then select my schedule. So it's all online booking. I used to have people text me, but while my phone number on there is public, I just get lots and lots of random calls, and they're awful sometimes, or text messages, and I just screenshot those, send them to our beat cop in Aurora. His name is John Martinez, Officer Martinez, and he just takes care of it for me. That way I don't have to mess with that. I'm hoping to have another liaison for that, because unfortunately it does happen. It's part of life, but I would rather the police just deal with that, and I can focus on my clients and just running my business. Most of my clients are it varies greatly, depending on the day. And so during the day, I get a lot of retirees. In the evenings, I get people who are 9 to 5. I also do chair massage on Wednesdays and sometimes Thursdays for the actors at the Paramount in Copley Theater, and the new one that just opened, it's called Stope Island. So I work on the $1 Million Quartet people. They're doing Full Monty coming up. And then the other one is Peter Pan and the Starcatcher. So that's the season. So it just depends on what their schedule is, because I want to be available for those guys, and then the crew as well. But I have monthly people, so you can sign up for a monthly massage, and then if you book online, then I require a deposit because people cancel last minute, and it's just part of life. But so then that way, it just comes out of their membership. They don't have to pay a deposit.
And what's your website and phone number?
Sure.
Or what would be the preferable way for people to find out about you then?
So it would be Massage Book /biz/ Sunshine Massage Bodywork. Massage is my nickname from Girl Scouts, so that's why granola. But I mean, people can text me. I have it looped. I figured out how to I'm not as techy as some people, but you can type in sunshinemassagebody.com and it will reroute to Sunshine Wellness Services.com. But it's an LLC, so that's my LLC. But I didn't do it the other way because then I'd lose all my reviews on a massage book. And so that's like people will do a DBA or doing business as for that. So, I'm a school teacher and I want to do, I do massage. So, and yoga. So that's like my life. The tech end of all of that is, that's why I got this new software so that it can just kind of manage my schedule. And then I can just, instead of like, hey, what time are you available? And then you text back like, how about this time? Like, nope, can't make that. Like, okay, so just book online and then that's easier. But you're welcome to look it up. My rates on there are different. I changed them because I'm paying my mortgage, rent. So I'm upping my rates a little bit, just a little bit. It's not a lot. So for Batavia, I did create the online platform for that, but I have to pay extra for it. So I'm worried about logistics, and I think you guys might be worried that I'm a predator. So and it's just simply not the case. But I don't know how to prove that other than like letters and my track record and 23 years worth of, experience. So, but, you're welcome to come in anytime and just like scope it out. I don't mind giving the police my door code. There is a clause in there that, I will do it if you like, but it says to like leave the front door unlocked. And that to me is terrifying because then anybody can just come in while I'm in session. And, because it's just me there. But if I were to give the police the door code, then they can just come in and check anytime. But, they'd be listening to conversations about their boss or boyfriend or, but hey, I don't care. Like, it's fine by me.
Okay. If there are no other questions, can I have a motion to recommend to council ordinance 2024-57, conditional use for massage therapy establishment at 103 East Wilson, Zenloft Collective?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Solfa, second by Malay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that goes on to our next council meeting. If you want to show up on that Monday night, we'll do that. And if you want to, get a better list of how people can contact you, something that we could have it back on TV again and let people know, where you're located and exactly what you offer and how to contact you.
Okay, so those things on that Monday. Okay, sounds good. Right. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now we'll move on to item 8, which is a discussion on the street bike lane on Millview Drive from Main Street to Route 31. Tonight we're going to talk about the entirety of the street and where we would like that to go. I know we kind of talked about most of it last time, but we didn't talk about all of it. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We'll start out and let Rahat.
Okay, so thank you. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about the bike route on Millview Drive. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, that Millview Drive has been identified as one of the bike route for the city. The primary reason is the Main Street is going to have on-street bike path once the Main Street gets reconstructed. The portion east of Van Northwick already has a shared bike path, but on the west of Van Northwick to Randall will have dedicated bike lane on both sides of the street. And then Millview is a connection between that Main Street and all the way to Route 31. And on the east side of Route 31, we have the Forest Preserve. So through the bike and ped plan that was adopted in 2023, this was identified as the bike route for the city. It's already a bike route. There are signs out there saying it's a bike route. It just don't have any on-street bike path right now, marked bike path or anything like that. We have recently resurfaced Millview Drive, so the council has showed interest in whenever we resurface any street, we should discuss it if there is a possibility of putting a bike path. So 2 weeks ago, I indicated that the street is 37 feet wide. So if the city choose to do it, then we can actually install bike path. And I'm going to show just a exhibit. Sorry, give me a second. So here is a exhibit that I showed it to you. This is the existing condition from Main Street to Allen Drive. We have a parking on the west side of the street, no parking on the east side of the street, and there are two 12-feet lane exist. This is all the way to Allen. And then I provided two alternatives. One is introduce bike lane on both sides of the street and keep the parking as it is. And there was another alternative which showed that bike lane is kind of buffered by parking. So you'll have a bike lane, then you'll have parking, then 2 lanes, and then parking. So one of the bike lanes, which is the west-southbound bike lane, will be buffered by parking so that when people open the door, they're not going to hit the bicyclist. Similar option was presented for Ellen to town because our resurfacing kind of ended at town. But whatever option we choose here, we'll probably carry it all the way to Route 31 just because it's the uniform portion. So it could be broken into Ellen and Ellen to 31 as another option. So when we presented this, council showed interest in the alternative 2, which is this. And I asked you the question that should we invite the residents to discuss this with you? And based on your direction, I have sent a letter to the residents, and I believe some of the residents are here from that invitation. Before I open it to everybody, we have actually invited Active Transportation Commission here, and I believe Regan from Active Transportation is here. So if you allow, he can probably give his input, and then you can have a discussion. Any question for me?
How soon do we plan on striping this? Because I know when they put the temporary stripes out there, what's there right now is very confusing with the double yellow lines 10 or 12 feet away from the east side of the street, which is, you know, we're going to have school kids there tomorrow, and they're going to be confused, as 16-year-old drivers will be.
So we have talked to the contractor and asked him to line up the thermoplastic or the striping guy this weekend. So the thought was he will do Friday like south of Ellen, and then Saturday when school is not in session, do the portion north of Ellen, or Saturday, Monday. So Saturday he will do the portion where kids are gonna park, and then Monday the south portion.
I think that will be important with school starting, to get that done and correct whatever we decide on it tonight.
We can temporarily put some striping there to help the kids to park.
Okay, you want to come up from Active Transportation? We'll start with that, and then we'll discuss this a little bit, I think.
So thank you, Council. Thank you for allowing the commission to represent this. We're pleased to hear that, we're adding this bike lane. It's, as he mentioned, it's very vital to connecting our future bike paths heading west of the city and connecting them to Fox River Trail. So that's a bonus. But what we're talking about here tonight, my understanding, is how we're going to lay this out. What the striping is going to look like, and how it's going to affect the lanes and the painting and all that. So the commission did take some time at our regular monthly meeting last night to review what these options are, and we talked it out. Actually had a pretty lengthy discussion on what we thought was the best recommendation for the striping. And to cut to the chase here, we were pretty pleased, or not pleased, but thought that the best option would be the first option. Even though it does still lend the ability for a bicyclist to have a door strike, as we call it, from the driver's side, it's still a more traditional layout, which people are used to. We thought that keeping a more traditional layout for the striping, where it would be parking, curb, parking, bike lane, southbound, northbound, and then the bike lane on the other side of the street, is much more traditional and easier to follow. As you mentioned, there's already some confusion about the temporary striping, and if we were to go to the second idea, I think, or the commission thinks, that that would lend even more confusion, because it would be curb, bike lane, then parking. If a driver's uneducated or onto where to park, or also a lot of high school students utilize Millview, that could also lend to confusion on where to park for a new driver as well. So even though we do see the safety aspect of option number 2, we believe it's a moot point, because you're still going to open passenger side doors into the bike lane on that regular path anyway. So our recommendation from the commission is to stick with the more traditional layout, which is option 1 as mentioned, and go from there. But once again, we're just very overall pleased that we're going to have a nice connector or a bike lane from the Fox Valley River Trail all the way up to some future expansion that's planned out west of the city. So thank you again, Commission. Do you have any questions for the Commission or how we reviewed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And one of the things that was brought to my attention after we had the last meeting was the fact that if we have parking all along would be the west side or the south side as it turns back down towards 31, we would also lose parking spaces where every fire hydrant is along the west side, because all the fire hydrants are located on the west side of Millview, or the south side further down. And I think if you had the bike lane up against the curb and all those, there would be that temptation for the bicyclists to go back and forth, in and out of those, because I believe it's 2 parking spaces around each fire hydrant, Gary? Is that what it would be? You know, what, right, and there's a distance that we're supposed to have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it would equate to 2 full spaces.
Okay. But I mean, there would be an opening for each one, and definitely an opening.
Probably a space and a half.
And to me, just thinking about how I was as a bicyclist younger, it was an attraction to do that. So that's one thing that, came to light on that. And just going out and driving around Batavia and looking at the bike lanes that we do have, the shared Sharrows lanes and the regular bike lanes that are out there, to change this to something different on this street and this street only, I think would just be more of a confusion than anything. And trying to make it safe and consistent with everything else that we've done, I think option 1 is the way we should go with it. Sarah?
I was in favor of option 2 at the last meeting, but hearing from the Bike Commission, I think that is a really valuable perspective. And knowing that you guys had a lengthy conversation about it, thank you for doing that on behalf of our town and giving real thought to this decision, which is wonderful to have really dedicated bike lanes that will be well marked. So I'm absolutely in favor of what the Bike Commission the Active Transportation Commission has recommended.
Anybody else in the council have any comments? Okay. Now, I know you guys didn't come down here just to listen to us. Oh, Abby's got her hand up.
Yeah, I would just say I as a cyclist, I would still lean towards option 2. I think any level of protection and any buffer we can give to bike lanes is better. And I know that all of our other bike lanes are more in the traditional option 1 setting, but anything that would move us towards safer infrastructure, we have to start somewhere. So at some point, it's all going to be different. So If the rest of the committee wants to go with option 2, I am, again, like the Active Transportation Commission, just very grateful that we'll have more bike lanes and marked lanes. But yeah, as for the safety consideration, I still think the safer option is number 2.
Just to clarify, we did discuss last time that what we do from Main Street south is going to continue consistently all the way through to 31.
Yes, and that's why I think we should stick with option 1. It's that way going north on the street or west coming off of 31. So I think it just makes sense, even with parking just on one side, to have the lane next to the traffic. And, you know, we all have to learn how to deal with that, whether you're driving a car or riding a bike. And I think education and consistency makes that easier to educate people on that.
The vehicle code requires 15 feet around fire hydrants, so you can't park within 15 feet of them, to answer your question.
So that's 30 feet total or a space and a half.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that to attention because I think there's either 8 or 10 fire hydrants down that street. So that's a few parking spaces. So now I think I'll invite the public up to talk because I know you guys wanted to come down here and let us know what you think. So,
Dustin.
And also point out, longer term, if we ever get to the point of maybe wanting to add flex post separators in the future, once we find a good solution for the snow plowing side of things, alternative 2 would make that easier to implement, because if you have alternative 1, getting access to those parking spots wouldn't be possible. Just as maybe one long-term flexibility thought for the design.
I'll go ahead and jump in here. You know, I wasn't part of the original discussion. From my opinion, the high school section of this is fundamentally and categorically different than the residential section. So I'm just not in agreement that they need to match. Cyclists, I think, can navigate a transition, especially at a stop sign. I do think option, let me make sure I get this right, option 2 is probably the better choice by the high school, whereas option 1 makes a lot more sense in a residential setting. I do hear the Transportation Commission. I'm sure they spend a lot of time sitting and thinking on it. So I would just say option 2 makes sense around the high school, and I would understand the motivation for option 1 down the residential stretch. So that's kind of some considerations I'm taking into account here.
Yep, coming back up.
We actually considered that. That is obviously a little bit more logical because it is slightly different there by the high school. But again, to avoid confusion of the transition, either from cyclists and from drivers, we thought remaining consistent all the way down the street was the best idea. But no, we actually very much discussed your thoughts there. So I just want to acknowledge that.
And I'll reiterate and bring back up the point that on that section closest to the high school, there is a sidewalk all the way down the west side of the street on that side as well. Sarah?
But bikes aren't supposed to be on sidewalks.
I'm not saying that the bicyclists are on the sidewalk. I'm just saying that there is all the traffic to get to the cars is half of it's walking down the street, half of it's on the sidewalk, you know, in my opinion, when I see it out there.
Yeah. Actually, can I have clarification on that? I don't think the sidewalk goes all the way down to Ellen.
It does not.
Okay, it's only like where the church parking lot ends, right?
I think about that far, yeah.
So there's still a lot of unsidewalked on that west side.
The remainder will eventually be developed when Mooseheart gets developed. That was always the intention.
Right.
So that's all Mooseheart's property down there.
Anybody else? Okay, now we'll open it up to public comment. Anybody wants to come up, just come up. All we need is your name and say what you would like to say.
I don't know if you can see me behind here, but I usually have a pretty loud voice. Can you hear me?
Just need to make sure that you get to the mic so that
It's
way it
green,
gets
right?
recorded and broadcast.
Okay. I just want to say good evening. My name is Priscilla Miller, and I have lived in Batavia for nearly 40 years with my husband. Behind me are Ken, and we currently reside on Millview Drive. Members of the committee, we respectfully disagree with the two options you are currently proposing for a bike route/parking on Millview. As a taxpayer of the community, we implore you not to take away half of the parking on Millview. Please leave it the way it is, where both bikes and cars share, I emphasize share, the road. This proposal is problematic to the residents for the following example. It will restrict parking severely as to impede our ability to host friends and family gatherings. We are a friendly neighborhood. Let's not jeopardize relationships between neighbors by forcing us to vie for a few coveted spots of parking. Please consider the weight of those who are paying a premium in taxes to live in this beautiful community. Let us continue to peacefully enjoy gathering with our family, friends, and neighbors. We implore you, please keep the parking on both sides of Millview Drive. Members of the committee, thank you for your time and service to the community.
Hi, I'm Janet Wilbert. I have notes, but I just jotted them down, so they're not very organized, so please bear with me. I'm not used to doing this. My husband and family and I have lived on Millview Drive for 33 plus years. So we have seen a lot that many of you council members maybe aren't even old, well, maybe are old enough, but we've seen a lot of things happen there. And so in not any particular order, I just want to say that, first of all, I want to say that someone told me not to bother to come to this meeting because you all had made up your own minds. And what I say wouldn't matter, but I hope that's not true, so I'm here. Our family is not against biking. We raised our children biking. We still have our Burley, which we're hoping to someday bike with grandchildren with. So we're a biking family. But having said that, Millview Drive, one of the reasons stated is it's a thoroughfare. It's a very, very busy street. To this other lady's point, I think that what I'm hearing when I look at those pictures, I think that you should not defer to hypothetical bikers. Now, I know that there are bikers and they're real people there. The people are not hypothetical, but defer to them over the tax-paying homeowners who actually have an investment on the street, who actually live there and are raising their children. We don't know when a bike is going to go by, but I could tell you most of the time when a bike goes by, it's multiple bikes. And almost never do they ride single file. Even when you beep your horn at them, they aren't single file. So that narrow little bike path next to the curb, between the curb and the car, is not going to accommodate multiple bikes that don't want to go single file. So they're going to be out in the middle of the street, which is far more dangerous. Again, I said this isn't in order, so I'm really sorry about that. But that was my one thing, is people who are paying taxes to live in these houses, please consider our lifestyle and the investment that we've made in the community versus people just riding by on their bikes. We should be able to park in front of our own homes. Now, we live on the side of the street that your pictures show we would be able to park there, but our neighbors would not. So they'll be coming over and parking in front of our house. And then, as the other lady said, what are we going to fight? Are we going to not be neighborly? There's not that many parking spaces. A lot of homes on our block and all the way down the street have landscaping services. And every day of the week, somewhere along the street, there's big honking landscape trucks. Where are they going to park? And when they're parking there, where are we going to park? And everybody should be allowed to maintain their lawns the way they want to, or have plumbers or carpenters or you name it come and work on your property. Where are they all going to park? To take away half a street of parking plus around all of the fire hydrants it just doesn't seem mathematically workable. So, okay, I already said that. Landscapers. Living there for 33 plus years, we have never once seen or heard of a door strike happening. I know theoretically it could, but I've never seen it and never heard of it ever on our street, up and down, anywhere. All of our neighbors, never heard of it. Theoretically it could happen, but are we going to plan our street around something that hasn't happened? I don't know. it doesn't, I don't know. Millview is a very busy street because it does go through. We have a lot of traffic that comes through there. And to have our cars in the middle of the road or having them nowhere to park, just in case there might be bike riders, it doesn't seem like it's protecting our properties in the form of cars and such. It's not protecting our properties. We've had some instances of vandalism and breaking into cars. Who wants their car out farther out into the middle of the dark street? I don't know. It's not a good thing for me. Right now, living on Millview Drive, it's very difficult to get back out of our driveways because of the traffic, especially like after school and during busy times. If you've got a space between the curb and the cars, and then you've got cars parked or landscaping trucks parked, it's going to be impossible to get out of our driveways. We've come to live with it. We get what it is, but please don't make it worse. The mail delivery, when we get it, how are they going to manage that if there's no parking on one side, or if there's all the parking is on one side of our street? I don't know, that's something to consider. Today, I watched the high school cross-country runners running down Millview Drive, as they do every single season, and track does as well. And yeah, they're supposed to stay on the sidewalks, but God bless them, they don't. They're in the street. Just gonna put that there. And then also I was concerned about snow plows, but it seems like you may have already talked about that. I don't know how they're gonna plow if there's cars out in the middle of the street. I think, I already said about the bike riders riding multiple lanes, like side by side. The current laws aren't being enforced, and I don't think they necessarily should be for that. If you've got a couple people and there's not a lot of going on and they happen to be riding side by side, okay, but they're going to do that out into the middle of the street next time. So I'm asking for just two things. Please don't take away the parking on both sides of the street. And secondly, please don't put a bike lane between the curb and the parked cars. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I do appreciate knowing that we're allowed to come and speak, because I want to know that my friend who told me not to come is wrong. Thank you so much.
You're encouraged, not only allowed.
I feel empowered.
And it does matter.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Quinlan. I live at 1169 Millview Drive, so directly impacted by this proposal. I've lived on that street for 9 years. We're a very active family. I'm very pro bicycle safety and bicycle lanes. However, I do question the overall safety of this. And one thing I did see yesterday on social media, and we all know social media is 100% true all the time, so I shouldn't have to ask. But I did see that the road diet was approved and that it was going to be striped by October 31st. Because that's
the agenda for this evening.
Is it? Okay. Because that was my major safety. That was my major concern, is promoting people to go to a very dangerous intersection. I think everything else has been said that I was going to say. So thank you for confirming that.
I'm Haley Graham. I live on Millview with my husband and my 3-year-old, and we're expecting another in November. We just moved in a few years ago, and actually Janet's my next door neighbor, so good to see you. Thank you. I'd like to echo all of the concerns that my neighbors have shared regarding the parking. That is one of my main concerns, but it's not my top concern. And one point that wasn't made about the parking is the fact that we have high schoolers parking already all the way down to Danforth, already in front of our houses. So if you eliminate parking on one side of the street, where are we going to go? And they're already parking in front. They're parking in front of the fire hydrants, the high school students. Perhaps they don't know about the ordinances. And there is a sign that is past Allen that says no parking for the high school beyond this point. They do. And the closer you get to summer, the more students are parking there, right in front of our houses. If you take away half of the parking on our street, we're literally going to have nowhere for our families who watch our children, our friends who come and visit us, the people who come in and do our landscaping, people who stop by our homes. Where are they going to park, and where are we going to park? My main concern, though, is safety. And it's apparent to me that the safety of the bikers, the hypothetical bikers, is being outweighed by the safety of the kids in the neighborhood. Because the street is already very busy. As my neighbors have said, people are flying down. No one is respecting the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. And you have semis going down the street. Why are there semis going down Millview? If you want to improve the safety of Millview and make it more bike-friendly, eliminate the thoroughfare of Millview to semis and commercial vehicles like that. Have them go down Randall. Have them go up to 31 by Main. That is unreasonable for them to be going down Millview, speeding through our neighborhood, and then taking away half of the street parking, making it even busier. On my small block alone, I live in between Danforth and Elton, and there are 9 children. 9. On my small area, 9 children under 3. What is that going to look like for our kids when they're riding their bikes? They're not going to be in the bike lanes, but we have semis that are speeding down the street. And if you're concerned about safety, why is there not a stoplight at Millview and 31?
Phase 2. We're working on that.
Well, why is that not phase 1?
Because
There's
they
been a
wouldn't allow it the
after
last time we asked
fatality.
for it.
IDOT.
IDOT would not allow it the last time we asked for it.
Okay.
Now, because the county is actually going to put a ped bridge across the river in that park, there's a way that we think we can get the light put in there. And it's part of the road diet, but it's phase 2. We had to separate this stuff out so we can try and get it done as fast as we can. It doesn't happen overnight.
I understand that. I get things take time, but I think I also understand priorities, and I think a stoplight at Millview and 31 is much more of a priority than putting a bike lane and taking away half of the parking and allowing a bike lane for these hypothetical bikers. Both my husband and I work from home. Someone is always home. We see the street. We see what's going on. There is not enough bike traffic to warrant taking parking away from us, the taxpayers. And I think if you do this and you take half the parking away, the entire street of Millview can appeal their taxes, and their taxes are going to be lowered because the assessments are going to be lowered, because you're turning the Millview into something that it's not. There's no need for a bike path. And that's all I've got. Thank you for your time. Please consider the safety of our families.
Andy Maresca, 1044 Millview, kind of dead center of the neighborhood. My family moved there in 2007 prior to any striping on the road at all. That area has always been a biking thoroughfare. There have always been parking on the street, even before there was striping on the road. I would say that before there was striping and we would walk the neighborhood with our kids and bike with our kids, cars always gave people very wide berth. As has been pointed out, it's a very wide street. Never had any concerns about my kids being out there. I knew people gave leeway, never really had any issues with people speeding through the neighborhood. And I'm curious the psychological effect, because I would say that my observation was when striping came in, we started seeing kids not getting the same leeway because people want to hold their lane. And what I see here on these examples is they're going to get even tighter and they're going to get closer to bikes, not further away, because they don't want to leave their lane. The other thing I've seen, which is highlighted since the resurfacing happened and there aren't any stripes at all on the road again. It's kind of weird, but there hasn't been any speeding that I've seen. And I've been sitting with I live at home, I work at home, my window's open all day long, and I haven't heard any speeding since the stripes have been gone. There's no cars, and normally they peel out from the stop sign on the north end or west end there to the next stop sign on the far end, and there are kids, a lot of kids in that area. So I'm curious the psychology of actually leaving it with no stripes, because bikes have always gone through there, both our neighborhood as well as commuters going through there, recreational bikers, they've always been given plenty of berth. This seems like a solution looking for a problem that doesn't exist, in my view, so.
First of all, I'd like to ask a question. The thing that we got from Mr. Berry shows that by choosing option 2, it will eliminate one side of the street parking. But this seems to show that in either alternative, the parking will be cut in half. Is that true?
No. So only the east side parking will be eliminated.
But there's a parking lane in either option.
One parking lane. So
One
yes,
parking lane
the
would
east
be
side.
option 1 or 2.
Right.
All right.
1 or 2.
All right.
And can we get your name for the record, sir?
I'm sorry, Jerry Castellani. I live on Millview also. And I have a number of questions, but one thing that came up due to somebody else talking was I hadn't thought about the mail delivery. I don't think those mail trucks are 4 feet wide. So how are they going to negotiate the bike lane without having to get in and out of the truck every single time they're going to do the mail? So that's one question. Somebody else brought up landscapers, and a lot of times these landscapers or lawn services have hoses that they take from their trucks and bring it around to the front and the back of the homes. These hoses are going to be stretched across the bike lane, which creates an obstacle for the bikes. Same thing with, I don't know what kind of provision you're going to make for Groot. I don't know how they're going to, they've already got those long arms, but I don't think they stretch that far that they can go from the outside of the parking lane all the way through the parking lane and the bike lane. So that's going to be an in and out kind of a situation for them too. It's easier for them when the parking is against the curb because they can kind of maneuver a little bit around there and it will stretch out there, but it's not going to stretch 4 extra feet for the bike lane. I also just raised the question, I don't know how this affects school bus loading and unloading. Now you're going to have the kids in the bike lane waiting to get on the bus, and now you got bicycle traffic competing with little kids. Right now, they are on the curb when they get on the bus, and there's no danger to them. Same thing with disabilities, with the cars that have the side doors where a ramp would come down. You're going to lower the ramp right into the bike lane. And then, right now, I would assume it's on the parkway. If you do it in the bike lane, I don't know where the maneuverability is for wheelchairs. So let's see. Another question I have is, how are visitors going to react to this odd setup where they've seen it no place else? I've never seen this kind of a configuration where the bike lane is in between the traffic and the parking lane in between. Most people that are coming to visit are just going to pull over to the curb where 99% of people are used to parking. Another thing as far as safety for the bikes is if you, right now, the way they travel is they're out in the street, or sometimes they're against the curb if there's not a bunch of parked cars. But if a parked car against the curb right now opens their car door, the driver's side, they have some room to swerve to the left. If you put a bike lane in there and a car door opens, they're not going to swerve left because the car's there. And if they swerve right, they're going to go right into the curb. And you can't tell me that's safer than what we have now. And then last, I just want to say that the Illinois rules of the road state that you will be parked no farther than 12 inches from the curb. So we're kind of going against that rule too. Thanks.
Good evening. Thank you for your service to our community. I appreciate it. We've heard quite a few quite a few opinions here, and some very, very, very important things have been brought up with this. Personally, I'm not a fan of this plan, but whether I'm a fan of it or not, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any difference. What I want the city to do is to look at these plans with critical thinking. Don't have a bunch of people that want to feel good about making a bike path and things like that voting on it. We need to look at the totality of the circumstances, and for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. If you narrow the lanes of the streets, you're going to have more conflicts with cars and with bicycles. We've lived on Millview for, it's hard to believe, but almost 25 years now, and we're close to the park, and we see parents and children riding their bikes up and down the sidewalk to get to the park. Generally speaking, parents aren't going to feel comfortable pushing a stroller and having a youngster on a bicycle out in the street. If we're eliminating the parking or eliminating the parking on the street, you're going to have more cars parking in driveways. The city of Batavia does not enforce the rule about blocking a sidewalk when you park in your driveway, which I'm not arguing that, but what that's going to do is that's going to squeegee all of those people using the sidewalks to get their young children and kids in strollers to the park. You're going to squeegee them right off into the road. And that's not going to be comfortable, and there's more of a chance of negative interaction between the motoring public and the bicycling or walking public. So we do have guests over at times, and we have people parking on the street on our side of Millview, which would be eliminated from this, it looks like. And I don't know where our guests are going to park, because we live close to the high school. If we got guests during the day when the school's in session, there will be nowhere to park. The parking lots at the park will be full, and the parking lots at the church are full. And that's all students. So it will impact negatively some of the people that live and thrive in that community. I know a little bit about the negative interaction between cars and automobiles, because I was in law enforcement for 32 years, and I was in charge of the traffic unit for about 6 of those years. And so anytime there was a major accident or serious injury accident, it was my guys and gals that were heading out there. And I was out there, and these are things we don't ever want to have happen in this town. If we can avoid it, then we should really look at these plans with critical thinking. The lanes for the bicycles at 4 feet are too narrow. Bicyclists, avid cyclists don't ride single file. I don't know why. I'm not criticizing them. I'm just stating a fact. They don't ride single file. You're not going to have, so one of them is going to be out in the road in the driving lane anyway. So there's other design areas within the city that I don't think have been taken into consideration or looked at with critical thinking before the decision was made. Main Street to the east, the parking spaces aren't wide enough anyway. Mark my words, I don't want to say this, but mark my words, there will be an interaction between somebody's car door and a car going by, and it's not going to end well. It's only a matter of time. And when we're talking about adding more housing when Mooseheart gets developed, that's going to increase the traffic on the street as well. So I'm just asking that you look at this with critical thinking and forward thinking before we go making a decision that will affect a lot of people, and some people very negatively. Thank you.
Can we get your name for the record, sir?
Spencer Cronin.
Thank you.
Excuse my limping, my wife calls it the 12-step program. You got to walk 12 steps before you can walk right again. David Brown, 1163 Millview Drive. I know quite a few of you. Everybody's pretty much said everything that I really wanted to say. The last gentleman spoke very well about what I wanted to say, and that is just to make sure you consider everything. Alan, you and I talked, and that's when I think you became aware of all the fire hydrants, where they're at. That has an effect on what your thinking is. The intersection of Millview Drive and 31, I understand that you're trying, and I know it's very difficult, but I think designating Millview Drive as a critical bike path before you get IDOT to do something is asking for trouble. I know IDOT doesn't necessarily look at fatalities, they look at traffic count. I hate to see any more fatalities before we have something done down there when you designate Millview Drive as a major bike route. Rod, you mentioned that Main Street's going to get reconstructed, so I'm just wanting to make sure that when you think about what you're doing on Millview, you're thinking about the bicycle safety at that intersection because you're planning on bicycles being there and want to make sure that, as the last gentleman said, you're really thinking through everything that's going to happen. 7-foot bike lane, or I'm sorry, a 7-foot parking lane, 4 foot off of the curb where the high school kids park. They can't park next to the curb now. Imagine trying to get them to park in that 7-foot lane 4 feet away from the curb. They're going to be 8 feet, 9 feet out, you know? So I think you're just asking for trouble doing that. One woman, or one of the residents mentioned landscaper trucks and stuff. Large vehicles, the mirrors stick out past 8 feet on a lot of these vehicles. My Tahoe, my mirrors are 7'11". I measured them today. So when you're parked in a 7-foot lane, is your mirror going to be in the bike lane or is it going to be in the traffic lane? What's going to happen? So that's my thought. You know I sent my 2 aldermen and you, Alan, a list of my concerns. I don't know if you distributed them or not. I just want to make sure that before you make this decision, as I know there are many you have to make, you're considering all the effects and the reactions of what you do. And I know you try to, but that's why it's great when the residents come, because there are things you just don't think of. It's good to hear from the residents. So appreciate your time. Appreciate all the work you guys put into this. Thanks.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Kalina. My wife Haley spoke. Mr. Barry and I also spoke last week. So the first question I have, it's not original. My father's a civil engineer, and Mr. Barry and him actually know each other. I'm just curious if so from what I've been told, in order to have a bike path or a walkway, you need a 2% cross slope. Is the street actually at 2%? That's number one. Based upon what we looked at this past weekend, my father and I, it looks a little high. So I'd be interested if that's actually proper slope, because that could be dangerous. Second, with the fatality that happened at Millview and 31 back in May of 2023, now that makes a stoplight that are warranted. So any red tape can easily be bypassed due to it being warranted due to the fatality. It only requires one fatality. So rather than us focusing on the bike path, I don't know why we're not focusing on what is within our control. It sounds like we're throwing haphazard answers at a bigger problem. Now, the goal of all city councils is to make money. Well, it is tax dollars, revenue. Why don't we stop trucks by going through Millview as a thorough street? We could stop that. That would allow us to keep the cars and the parking as is. That would eliminate the concern over the bike path for the bicyclists, leaving the residents parking and the bicyclists to figure it out. Police officers, former police officers just spoke about that. And by doing that, we would also increase revenue. That would increase revenue. If you make this a busy street, which it's not, you're going to decrease revenue by having citizens want to orchestrate a mass appeal, which could be possible. You're lowering the market value by making it a busy street. Now, if you look at Main Street, it's a beautiful street, but there's a difference in the type of street it is. Now, Millview, Millview is a drive. Main Street's a street. I'm not sure if Millview is an artillery road. So you have the right to only allow permitted vehicles going through that road, which would make it safer for everyone. And we can table this issue if you wanted to, and you can revisit it if after exercising these options it didn't work. But it still seems like the main concern is not really the bicyclists. It's the fact of where they're actually encountering the danger, which is at 31 in Millview. But as I just said, stoplight's warranted. There was a fatality. So rather than, I'm going to reiterate it, repeat myself, rather than, Lou Holtz, football coach of Notre Dame, South Carolina. Acronym is WIN. What's important now? Is putting a bike lane really the most important thing right now? It doesn't seem to be. And Lou Holtz said, oftentimes we get distracted by doing what we think is important, because really, what's really important is just too damn hard, and we avoid it out of fear and the lack of effort. And we disguise ourselves. And I ask you not to disguise yourself with the real issues here. So that's all I got. Thank you for listening. Have a good evening.
Charlie Corey, 1311 Town Avenue, Batavia. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the good points that have already been made here, but the cover letter that I got a copy of said that the purpose of this whole program, restriping with bike lanes, was to enhance safety. I would submit, based on all of the comments that have been made about parking on Millview, we're not enhancing safety for the people who live on Millview. If I live on the east side and I have the requirement to park on the west side, guess what? I've got to cross Millview. Well, that doesn't enhance my safety. If I'm going to go and park down by the park on the now south side, which we're calling the west side of Millview, where there's a ball field and there's the Moose Lodge, if I have to park on the south side of Millview, guess what? You're going to have kids, parents, all sorts of traffic crossing busy Millview. That's not enhancing safety. This whole program is a farce. Put it in perspective. How many bicycle accidents have we had on Millview in 23, 22, 21, count them back? How many reported bike accidents have we had on Millview? Any answers to that? How many? How many? What's the traffic volume of bicycles on Millview when school is out? What's the bicycle traffic? I walk Millview every day with my dog. I drive Millview. Very seldom do I see bicyclists. At 6 o'clock in the morning, there is one gentleman that rides his bike down Millview on the west side, right next to the curb. My submission to you is restripe the parking lanes the way we have it now and turn the parking lanes into a shared right-of-way. Mark it like you did on Main Street with the bike emblem. The state law requires that people driving cars are required to leave 3 feet between the bicyclist and the driver. State law. So just leave the parking lanes spots the way they are today. Mark them as a shared roadway for bicyclists so they know they can ride their safety. And just like today, if there's a car in the parking lane, guess what? What's the bicyclist going to do? He's going to pull out and pass the car. Didn't we all do that as kids? Don't we do that today as grown-ups? Why do we need a bike lane just to take up space? And I have another question that I didn't even think about earlier. But are the bicyclists, are they going to be registered and have to pay taxes for that lane that we're providing and paving and striping for them? Are they going to have any skin in the game? No, they're not. What are you frowning for?
Everybody here pays taxes.
But we're going to be adding a cost to this to maintain it, right?
The cost.
Huh?
What's the new cost that's not already going to be based on the paint there?
The cost to do this, I don't know. The striper's going to have to tell you how much more he's going to have to charge to put in bike lanes in addition to the striping that's already down there. Again, I'm not going to get into the cost element, but why are we doing this if we're really trying to enhance safety? Because it's not going to enhance safety. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good evening to the council. My name is Terry Roofer. I live at 1160 Millview, near some of the other people who've spoken. I have a few concerns, and safety is really my primary interest. I understand the charts. I don't like them. I think for us residents on Millview, we're going to park somewhere. Our visitors are going to park somewhere. And from my side, I'm on the east side of the street. If someone wants to visit me, there's no place to park across the street, they're going to be parking on town around the corner. So one of my questions is, I received the letter, happy to have it. Did the letter go to our neighbors far back into the suburb, the subdivisions? Because they have skin in the game too. They're actually going to be affected by what's happened on Millview just as much as we are. I understand, I think I understand the point about the value of our property. One of the things you might think about is putting in and maintaining all the, I'd say ugly, no parking signs along Millview. I don't want to see that in front of my house. There's enough signage already. And it can become confusing. I've lived in a country where biking is endemic through the culture, very, very important part of the thing. And there are bike routes developed for it. Batavia was developed without the space for that. Maybe you have to rethink things and decide what better to do with some of the space we have. In some countries, we wouldn't have these nice frontages, the other side of the sidewalk. They'd be bike lanes or the like. I don't want to lose the trees to that, but there are other ways to do it. And I suggest you probably haven't done enough benchmarking. I just spent a week in Minneapolis, St. Paul, drove through some of the streets that are well designed, well striped for biking. I'm encouraged by that. I know areas in Chicago where it's done well. But there's still some challenges. I don't think the culture of Batavia is ready for this. I don't think we have the bike population to justify what you're planning here. And my party shot is we have I live near the corner of town, the northern corner of town in Millview. I think the far corner of town in Millview is very similar. We have slow signs on the corner. They're not stop signs because nobody uses them, including bicycles. I think that will continue. So re-engineering that corner may be a smarter thing than messing around at trying to add bike lanes. Thank you for your time. This is an interesting discussion.
Thank you.
Not even that long. I just have one more question. Terry brought up a good point about the neighbors being notified. The letter, Rod, that you sent out refers to from town to Ellen Lane. So was all of Millview all the way down to 31? Were all those residents notified?
So we notified residents all the way.
Got to use the mic for hot so that it gets on the broadcast. Thank you.
We notify all the residents just south of town, like 4 houses south of Town Avenue. from obviously Main Street, south of town.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, because to me that brings up a big red flag, because you've got residents here tonight that receive notification. Once this decision is made tonight, those residents, when you repave next year, they don't have a say in what's going to happen because you've already decided.
If we keep the continuity from one end to the other.
If you keep it going all the way down to, from Main to 31, yeah. And from what I've heard, you want to be consistent in what you do, so you're saying that that's what you're going to do, but yet you haven't notified those people that live on Millview. Thank you.
Mary Croning, 608 Millview. Where we're at, the high school parking affects us all the time. It goes past Ellen. So essentially, you'll shut down parking on our side of the street. We'll have no parking in our block. None. My neighbor's house just burned. How are they going to have all the material they need delivered and all the workmen parking to get the work done? I want to know, is this a done deal? Do we all come down here for nothing?
We have not voted on this yet, so no, it's not a done deal.
Well, I hope you reconsider and you listen to our comments, please. Thank you.
So, a couple things. Thanks, everybody, for coming down. Appreciate it, and not only that, encourage it. We don't sometimes get that, so it's good to hear from folks that are impacted directly, you know, for some of these decisions that sometimes, you know, we don't have the luxury of living on the street, knowing exactly what's, you know, what that traffic's like. So appreciate all you coming down and giving your opinion. To that extent, I'll be honest, changed my mind a little bit. You know, at first I'm looking at it and, you know, giving my opinions here in my own head, but the great points are, did we run the numbers? And I don't know whether that'd be an active transportation committee question or a hot question, but, you know, do we know how many bikes day, year go down that? How was this decision made? Why are we doing it on Millview? How many accidents in previous years? I mean, there must be a reason why we picked Millview. I live off Redant. It's basically the same road. We don't do it there. I mean, we have parking on both sides of Redant. So I'm in my mind connecting it to Redant, and I'm therefore, you know, finding myself on the side of the folks here. Do we have those numbers at all?
Excuse me. Millview was selected because it's part of the bike and ped plan, a plan that was approved by City Council. That's why staff is implementing the bike lanes on Millview, because it's already been a plan approved by City Council.
Sure, part of a larger plan, right? Sure, we'll run across more of these as well, but that wasn't did we run the numbers or no?
We don't have bicycle counts on Millview, no. I don't know that we have bicycle counts on any street that's in the bike and ped plan.
Maybe we start doing that. I mean, just so that we have an idea of where the bikes are going.
I believe during the bike and ped plan development, there were a lot of interviews conducted, you know, residents' input was taken, and based on the input, that plan was developed. So it's something that the residents of Batavia has expressed interest, and Millview is listed on that plan, saying it's a bike route. It's currently a bike route.
Bike route does not mean it needs a bike path. Is that? Or are we connecting those? Did we tell staff that as council, if we designate it as bike route, it needs a bike path?
So in that plan, it says that there should be protected bike lane going northbound. So there are some guidelines that is given in that bike and ped plan. Okay. So we look at that. So anytime we are resurfacing a street, we look at the bike and ped plan and see what kind of improvements we can make, like whether restriping some of the crosswalk or adding a bike lane and all that. So based on that, because we are resurfacing Millview right now, that's why we presented this plan, saying, these are your options. I mean, one of the options is doing nothing. So that's like, keep it as it is. So it's up to the city council. But to echo what Gary said, we don't have those counts. How many bikers go down? We did.
That's okay.
I'm just going. We did take a drive-by on Thursday and Sunday, both days, to see how many people park on Millview. At least on that portion, we saw 2 cars. It's a snapshot, obviously, during the day. 2 cars parked on Millview up to town, and 4 cars on the weekend. That's what we saw. But that's the count, empirical count we have. But other than that, we don't have any other count.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not saying we had to have those counts. I was just curious if we did, or if we had any rough estimates or anything like that. Max,
Yeah, I do want to say our police department did run the counts since 2022 of crashes. There were not any bike versus car crashes at the time. And something that you did put in your strategic plan as well is the ability to buy us a tool that does allow us to collect bike and pedestrian counts. That's something that I know Gary and I have already talked to a vendor about, and we are intending to put in next year's budget, I believe. So that would allow us to actually get those numbers if you inquire about
get
them.
like
So
a heat map style.
that's something that we're intending to be able to do in the future, is to get those tools. You can affix them to, a light pole or a street sign and be able to count those for any given period. So that's something we are looking into.
For sure. A portion of the city surveillance might be able to do it as well as that goes. So, okay. So that clears up for me how we got where we are today. And we can talk about that as a council, but I just want to get some of those baseline pieces out there. And then and the other piece would be the grade. I mean, if all of that is true, if what the gentleman came up and said, and it's not 2%, or, the other piece that he said was about a light at Millview and 31, and that we have, I don't know, I mean, IDOT's an absolute nightmare, and we know that. Do we have jurisdiction if there's one death in an intersection that we
I'm sorry, but that's just not factually true.
I didn't know.
The MUTCD has warrants, 8-hour vehicular volume, 4-hour vehicular volume, peak hour volume, pedestrian volume, school crossing, coordinated signal system, which is like what we have through the downtown, crash experience, and then roadway network. But if you go to crash experience, there is no mention in there that one fatality suddenly makes a warrant. In fact, there's specific criteria in there under crash experience, what meets the warrant, no mention of fatality. So that simply just isn't a true statement.
Okay. I figured we would have been on that if we could have.
2% is not a criteria for a bike lane either. So
okay.
So that's not factually correct too.
Okay. Perfect. I think, I think we just take a harder look at this, as a council. And I agree with people that came up. Like, we just need to critically think about this. I agree with, bike traffic and being safe, but let's be realistic about it. And if it, if honestly getting it tighter is going, which I do understand, people holding their lane, the high schoolers parking, the folks mowing yards and things like that. I hear all those concerns. I mean, I see it up and down on my street all the time. There isn't an issue today because we have parking on both sides, but I would be concerned if I saw one side of Verdant's parking go away. So I'm concerned there, but that's my 2 cents. Robin?
Just to clarify a couple of things that a couple of the residents had brought up. So when you have the bike lane on the east side of the street, when we're talking about the mail, the garbage truck, school buses, things like that, they pull into the bike lane, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
They would, just like they do today.
Right.
On any of the streets that have a bike lane, whether it be Prairie or, whatever street they're on.
Okay.
Tony?
Thanks, Ellen. So we have 3 alternatives here. One's doing nothing. The option 2, we heard from the active transportation committee that's not advisable. I continue to agree with it as I did before. Looking at alternative 1, which would have 2 bike lanes, so that would be the difference of the current option. It would add a second bike lane. I do believe bike lanes, designated bike lanes, provide safety. We are trying to encourage more active transportation. That's why we have an active transportation commission. The question that I have, and you alluded to it a little bit, the count of cars that park Because I heard that was a major concern of the citizens that live on Millview, and I appreciate that. But is it currently over 50% capacity at parking? So there wouldn't be parking available? I don't think so, because every time I go down Millview, it's not like both sides are lined with cars. So I guess I'd be curious of how many, if we did go down to just one side parking, is anybody not going to be able to find parking? I don't think the volume is there for that, and
Football games, the wrestling meets that are at the high school. I mean,
We can't have comments from the gallery without somebody being in front of a microphone because it doesn't get on the broadcast and it doesn't get into the record.
So I think that would be the count. The count that I would want to see is what is the average daily parking there? To know if, we heard it on Prairie, when we did Prairie there, we did take the parking off. There is no parking on either side there, and the residents had to park on the side streets because we felt that the safety for biking and the encouragement of active transportation was part of our strategic goal, and that's what we were trying to accomplish in the plan that we have adopted. So I support alternative one because I believe it still will allow for enough parking. Yes, there are events that cause overflow parking. But on the day-to-day, I believe I don't see that many cars parking there that there wouldn't be any more parking available.
Yeah.
I have a couple thoughts, but Tony, just to speak directly to that, during the summer months down by the baseball field, down near Route 31, there is a lot of cars on both sides that are parked for blocks for the games. So I was imagining that tonight during this conversation, if now on the north side isn't parking, I mean, you're speaking of a half a mile of cars parked for games and a lot of walking for kids and families and all of that. So that's one specific where we're not even really discussing tonight, except we're trying to think future for the whole road. But that if we only do parking on one side, that will massively impact that section of Millview. And I live over here. I'm not in Ward 7, but I'm in Ward 2. I live on Roberts Lane. So I'm very near the high school. And there is a lot of, for different school events, where the parking is utilized heavily on Millview. So it is trying to think of if we reduce parking by half on the two ends of Millview, you will feel it.
There's no parking on Millview along the park out there.
True. I'm thinking kind of like what the Cronin said, for them, they will lose the ability to park during school events.
In that block.
And down towards Danforth and Warren. So I think tonight gave people the opportunity to share lots of concerns because you came to a meeting and you have our ears, so thank you. I think the major concern is not losing parking in front of your homes. I think that's what I heard the most of. Safety, I mean, of course, we all want safety, and we all have different ideas of what that looks like. And a lot of times that just comes down to what our current activities are. Like if you're not a biker, you're not really concerned about that. If you're not a walker, it's less of a concern. And so we're trying to do a community thing here tonight where we're thinking about each of you as residents, but then also as our community as a whole. And so thank you for joining in on that conversation with us. So another thing I heard was safety with speeding on Millview. That's an issue throughout town. The trucks coming through Millview, Route 31 in Millview, which I can tell you we've had many, many, many conversations with IDOT about. We've involved our legislators. They've been to some of these meetings. We are doing our best. And we've shown up at Springfield with letters. We're doing our best to try to help that intersection. The lady who died in that fatality was a friend of many of ours. So we're here with you with this. We're a part of this community. So I would, being somebody who lives in this area and who does use Millview Drive, and my children use it, honestly, I'm not against leaving it as it has been before the repaving. I have never felt unsafe on Millview as a biker. I've biked down to Aroni, I've biked down to Route 31 to cross over to the bike path. I personally feel biking on Millview is one of the safest places in town that I feel as a biker. So I don't necessarily see that as like a safety concern, except that as a city, we are trying to get some continuous paths throughout town as part of our plan. So that's where we're kind of struggling with the back and the forth here tonight.
We got Abby.
Abby, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to also speak to that bigger picture point, and also the future visioning versus the historic counts, for example. We don't know, to staff's point, we don't know the historic counts of how many cyclists are on this road. But we're talking now about what our vision is for this city in the future. And cities of the future have a better, safer mix of transportation options. And while we're weighing the priorities of parking spots and having to walk a few extra blocks to get to the school or get to a park or get to baseball, we also have to consider the fact that there are residents in this town that we represent that are too old, too young, too not able-bodied, or too poor to own a car. And they are entitled to the same ease of moving around this city as those of us that can afford, are young enough, are rich enough, are able-bodied enough to drive a car. So they count too, and they're paying taxes just like everyone else. They should have safe options for getting around the city, just like the rest of us in our cars. I wanted to go back to Kevin's point at the top of the discussion. I too am okay with a switch from Ellen Lane to the rest of the road. Like Leah, I've also biked on this road many times. It is not the most dangerous I've ever, I wouldn't say it's the most comfortable. It's not the least comfortable or the most dangerous that I've biked on, but bike lanes are necessary. It's prioritized as a bike route. And to also reiterate Leah's position that we are pushing on every available lever to get the intersection at Millview and 31 improved. I am still holding my breath for later in this meeting when we approve the striping to just restripe it, because we're inching the ball down the field on this one, and that's the next little increment of success that we can move towards this. So we're just doing one thing at a time, and we're doing the next best thing. But I just want to, I want to shift the conversation away from the avid cyclists that you see in groups. We're not talking about this. We're talking about people that are trying to use our roads for transportation that just might not be able to be in a car. And I want us to be mindful of a vision for a city that treats them all the same, and that we could invest in them all the same. And we don't invest in them all the same. And we're just asking for 4 feet and a little bit of paint. And I'm hoping we can accomplish that here.
Speaking to the observation about limited biking in the area now, when we did our bike and pedestrian plan, we conducted interviews and studies and polling that suggested that a lot of people currently don't feel safe biking, and that's why they don't bike. Part of this plan is to help provide much easier bike routes for people of all ages and demographics, and in that process, increase bike traffic, because it can be a net good for the city when more people are biking versus only driving. It's a lot easier infrastructure to work with, and it's generally more efficient on a land use perspective. Right now, we don't have a good east-west route in town, and especially with that pedestrian bridge going in at Lesser Ends, which is already now used as an access point for cyclists for the bike path there. This is well set up for being one of those routes in town. I do 100% agree. The intersection at 31 is far from ideal right now. with the road diet, I hope to see that improve simply by reducing a lane and thus having fewer conflict points. But I also very much agree that having a controlled intersection there is a good path forward that we'll have to work with IDOT to accomplish. That being said, this is the project on the docket right now because we just did resurfacing of the road. So it is being striped now, and it just makes sense to get this accomplished during this broader project. And it should be noted that the full striping along the entire length of the street won't occur until next year, which is when we'll be closer to having those conversations with the Route 31 Phase 2 section of construction. So that will factor into it and be a point of discussion. There's also going to be the bike lanes on Main Street, which this will interface with at some point too. So having this here now, obviously, there might be a perfectly ideal way of doing it, but in the iterative nature of city building, this is kind of what the impact, the point we're at right now. So that's why we're doing it now as opposed to waiting, because otherwise we're doubling or tripling our work rather than doing it when it makes sense as natural road reconstruction happens.
I guess what I hear is that, we'd like to take steps forward with this in some form or fashion because we have designated it as a bike route. Would it make sense to incrementally go forward like we did with Main Street, where we have the Sharrows and a parking lane? And then if we decide to go further south with this, or when we do decide to go further south with this, make the decision, do we go to a full striped protected bike lane or leave it as Sharrows as we have on Main Street now alongside of the parking lane so that it's designated as a bike route, striped with the Sharrows as a bike route, and it's a step towards a full bike lane, which I think is where we would like to be in the future because we're trying to connect all of this and we're trying to make it make sense with the plan that we've adopted.
For it to be eligible for a Sharrow, which is shared the road, it has to be at least 14 feet wide. So in that case, you will lose parking on one side anyway. So that's why I said that
the lanes on Main Street are 14 feet wide?
Yes.
On the eastbound lane where it's alongside the parking? Okay. I guess I never knew it was that wide. I drive it every day and it doesn't seem that wide to me.
So that's, I looked at the bike lane design manual and it says that it should be 14 feet wide. So that's why that option is not being presented to you that make it a Sharrow.
It would be just similar to this. Yeah. We'd have to take parking
You can make Sharrow in one lane, maybe, but so you gain like 5 feet. So you could have like a 5 to 6 feet wide parking on the east side, but that's only Sharrow on only one lane.
Nick?
Yeah, I'll throw my 2 cents in, even though it's, I'm conflicted. I'm the only alderman that voted against the bike lanes on Prairie. I support the residents. I would not want to lose parking, period. With that said, I'm conflicted because we want to promote active transportation. It's part of our strategic plan. So how do we get that? I really like that idea. I don't know. You said something interesting there, Rahat. You said it should be 14 feet wide. Does that mean it has to be 14 feet wide?
I believe that's how it's written, that it shall be 14 feet wide.
Yeah. I like the thought process because personally, we can promote active transportation without a stripe on or a separate lane. I mean, I don't know if this is really all this discussion. Parking will obviously change some patterns and habits. Will stripes on the thing really encourage more? Will somebody decide to bike today instead or not? I don't know. I know that's a direction we want to go in promoting active transportation, and I support that wholeheartedly. Whether or not it has to be done this way, I don't know. So I like your concept of thinking outside the box there. to get everybody moving in that direction. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I do understand where everybody's coming from, and I kind of echo what Abby and Dustin have said, that it's an attempt to promote that transportation more. And one of the gentlemen mentioned it. It's like, we don't have the culture around here for biking. We do and we don't. I mean, we all see the bikers come through downtown and they go out west, because out west of here, there's a lot of biking that's done on those roads. But we want to build that culture. And if you don't create the lanes, you won't build that culture. When you create the lanes and you narrow the lanes, then that actually does slow traffic. Narrowing the lanes slows traffic, makes it safer, makes when the bikes have a place to be, then they're like, okay, I know this is my spot. Just like on a road without a sidewalk, why are we building sidewalks all around town? To make it safer for people to walk around town. You can walk on the grass, sure, not quite as safe, because trust me, I've rolled my ankle just cutting my lawn. So but then people end up out in the street, right? And then that's not safe. So, because you're not going to walk in somebody's yard. So this is the idea, is to promote biking, to make it an option that people will more likely choose, because they have the space to do it. If it's not there, then they're like, maybe I won't do it. And there's a lot of roads that you're not going to do it on. I live on 31. You're not biking on 31 unless you're one of the packs of bikes. So I get it. We need to be able to put this in where we can to promote it as much as we can.
I'm in support of Alderman Cerrone's comments about promoting is fine. The stripes, I don't know what difference it really makes to a certain extent. And it kind of like goes right to Alderman Uber's point just now. Yeah, people don't want to bike on Route 31, but this is a nice wide road you can bike on without stripes. People have been doing it. And I just think that the impact is kind of outweighing the concept. I mean, the promotion of everything relating to being bike friendly, I have no problem with, but sometimes I think we go a little bit too far with what we're doing to promote that to the detriment of many others. And despite what everybody says about moving forward in terms of course, we want to promote any kinds of transportation and everything else, there still is a majority. And this is something I've struggled with on council for years now, is that we oftentimes hear from the very unsilent minority with the very silent majority sitting in the background, and then things happen, and then all of a sudden they go, what the heck just happened there? And it's because we have an unsilent minority who's very vocal and is good, but I've seen things happen where it feels like then there's an undue pressure against us as aldermen to pursue some moralistic path, be it whatever the topic or whatever the concept is, where I like to think more in the majority with keeping everything else into, and taking everything else into account, which is why I do, again, kind of echo Alderman Cerrone's thoughts about maybe the stripes, are they really going to make a difference on Millview? Because I just go back to what Alderman Uber just said. Yeah, 31 is totally different than Millview. So how are stripes going to make Millview any safer? And it's just my thought. To the extent that it's been proposed, I just don't know. And I don't have a good solution for this right now in terms of how we can stripe it or what we can do about it. But I just don't have a good solution. So I just don't know what to say in that regard.
Abby?
I just wanted to say that anecdotally, cyclists in your town are telling you that if there is striped paths, there will be more usage. And if anecdotes are not enough to sway you, there is peer-reviewed literature out there about infrastructure interventions that promote cycling. So if it is true that you do support promoting cycling, then this is the path forward to doing that. This isn't just hypothetical. This is not speculative. This is a proven path. And I would support going straight to the bike lanes. I don't think slow walking with the sharrows is the correct way.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. I agree with Alderman Cerrone. I wholeheartedly do support active transportation. I want more of it. I want to do more of it myself. I've never lived as close to a downtown as I do now, and me and my family love it. So, and we've loved some improvements we've already seen in our little area to be able to get us to downtown better. But I mean, I have to go back. We need to run numbers. We need data. I've heard a lot of people's feelings and including the folks who live there, right? And I appreciate all of those. But numbers don't lie. We have to get some sort of data. I haven't even heard cost data for what it costs to do these stripes. Now, I know what the response would probably be is, the cost is negligible given what we're going to get. But what if it's not? I have no idea what. Costs of everything is crazy these days. So if it costs 5 times more to put bike lane striping in and whatever, rather than we punt this down the road a little bit, stripe it like it's always been striped, run numbers, get some actual data to support moving away from where it's at today, I'm 100% game. In good conscience, I literally have heard next to no data. And, Abby, exactly what you're saying. If there's peer review stuff, if there's anything, we need that brought in front of council. And it's like, hey, here's why we're doing it this way and not this way. Because, the fact is nobody on this council is an expert in this particular field. So it's a difficult decision to make with all the constituents here who live on the street not wanting it, versus us with no data and our, want to have more active transportation and being in our strategic plan. I agree with both. We just need to put the facts on the table. Nick?
Still in the same boat. The one thing that was said, and I don't know if I would feel better knowing we do the right thing. Whichever way we go, I could see benefits in both. But the one thing I can't wrap my arms around is us, if we are making somebody had mentioned we're making a decision here, but we've stated we're making a decision all the way to 31, and those houses have not been notified. And that's something I believe in. And if we're going to just say we could get around it legally, hey, this decision was for this, and then a year that decision's for that. But we've made it pretty clear that we're making a decision for the whole street. I'm not real comfortable with doing that prior to notifying everyone along the street.
Jen, your next go.
I think kind of where I struggle here is, I go back to the active transportation plan that we all voted on and discussed and spent a lot of time putting together here. The number you're looking for based on it is like $12,983.
That's the difference, or the cost
for
of striping
Millview
for bikes?
from Main Street to Allen Lane.
What? Striping for bikes or just a standard stripe?
Buffered bike lane, shared lane markings, and bikeway wayfinding. So it's for bike lanes.
So that was an estimate, but
Right,
the
right.
real number is actually a little less than 8,000 based on the bid price. And you have already budgeted and approved that. So it's already
So
been.
it's negligible. I just didn't hear those numbers, or I couldn't
Yeah.
remember.
So it is in the plan, and as we look to the future of what our community is, we struggled with Prairie. Prairie got done. I can tell you, as somebody that rides from the west side to the east side, riding down Prairie Street, I feel more comfortable riding in the bike lanes than I do down 31 or 25, because I've ridden both of those, because we ride our bikes to go to the July 4th fireworks. And I think that we just need to move forward with that. It was a struggle, and the residents were not happy with it, but we moved forward because we had a vision of what we wanted for our community. And that is creating a bikeable community with bike routes that people know that they can have. And I think that's, for me, that's what the focus is for, is that we do need to move forward. There's going to be a change, and change is never easy. But it is something that everybody will eventually overcome 5 years from now. Kind of like on Prairie Street, residents have dealt with it and have figured it out.
Yeah, so a comment and then a question, right? I wonder how long I can lean on the new guy thing here. We'll see. But first off, my comment is that if our goal is to encourage more cycling on Millview, which I believe is the goal based on the active transportation plan, our current numbers, maybe we're not seeing cyclists a lot now, but if we want more there, we need to make sure we're advertising it as a cycling route. To me, as a cyclist who cycled years ago when I lived in Aurora, I came down the bike path, crossed 31 onto Millview, took Millview all the way up to the high school, then high school down Van Noordwijk into, not Van Noordwijk, I'm sorry, Western down into Geneva. And yeah, Millview is a pretty nice place to ride because people don't park there, right? One of the nice things about it was that in the morning I could ride that path and there were not a lot of cars in the morning there. On the way back, it got a little hairy right by the high school because high school students were coming in and out and I wasn't protected, right? That was the challenge I felt as a cyclist. So if our goal is to get more people on Millview, which I believe the active transportation plan is pretty explicit about, we have to advertise it. And so then my question though becomes, right, we're asking for numbers. We want some hard numbers. We got some dollar bill numbers on there, but we do have staff who have hopefully studied some of this. Do we know what the difference is between having a fully striped, 4-foot, nice, luxurious bike lane versus a sharrow? Do we see increases in cycling activity? Do we see decreases in bike car interactions? What kind of does the research that you guys found show on that?
We don't have any hard numbers on that. The sharrows on Main Street was put in based on the desire to have parking on one side of the street, on the north side of the street, and also we have limited right-of-way. So we didn't have the luxury that we have on Millview to put in 2 bike lane and also have parking on one side. So Main Street didn't have that. So that's the recent project that we have completed in last 4-5 years. But we don't have any hard data on how many people bike down or accidents, anything like that.
Yeah, I apologize. I think I'm thinking more from kind of the science perspective. What does the pure literature say, right? What does the literature say? What does our research when we're looking out into other communities and the academic world tell us about protected bike lanes for sharrows?
So all the literature that we have come across, it always says that if you can have a protected bike lane, that's preferable. If you can't provide that, then you go to the sharrows or share the bike type of. So that's the literature out there. Even I was reviewing there is a AASHTO book, it's American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. I was reviewing that before this meeting. They also started off with protected bike lane. When we talk about protected, like, outside the parking lane, or you have bumpers or some other things, to protect the bikers, because there is more accidents when the bikers are next to the cars. So they start with that. So it's always been at the top of the list.
Sure. Quickly, I do want to echo the thank you for everybody coming down and getting involved, because we'll talk about things and never hear stuff from people. So thank you for being here and sharing insights. Like Leah said about Aroni, the baseball field, I have boys that have played BYB, and that can get crowded. So I feel that very much. But echoing what others have said too, the safest, I've read articles, the safest thing for cyclists is those protected bike lanes, hands down. And we voted in favor of our strategic plan to encourage active transportation, bikeability, and this is like the first, this is the first step. It's going to be hard. I hear the concerns, I really do, but I feel like this is a step towards future and progress.
Alan, can I just clarify, and while Rahat's up there, a striping isn't considered a protected bike lane, or is it? Are those two different categorizations?
So let me rephrase. So off-street bike path is the best protection.
Right.
So it's not interacting with vehicles at all. If you can do that, then you put it on the street, but protected with, some kind of bumpers or like completely protection, like
Curbs, like.
curbs and all that.
Right.
If you can't do that, then you go down to another level, which is share. That's the next level. So you are sharing the road, which is 14 feet wide. So you're giving like 3-4 feet to the bikers. But if a car comes by, they can go around you, and you're still, there is some separation, if you want to say 14 feet. So 3 to 4 feet is yours, and 10 feet is for the cars.
But I was in between the second protected lane and the Shero, there's the designated lane. Is that, would that be in between
right.
there?
In between that, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess we need to kind of try to wrap this up and figure out where we want to go with this. We're having a discussion right now between the council. When we're done with that, we'll have a few minutes maybe for comment from the public. So we're going to have to make a decision, I think tonight, to decide what we want to do. I don't know if we want to separate out the piece closest to the high school and do that and then think about the next section, or if we want to try to do this to make it a continuous thing from one end to the other as we move forward. I think they each have their own different, characteristics that we might want to treat this in different sections, especially the piece by the high school. Chris?
And just in that regard, I'm going to throw out my original thought, and that was you just have a bike lane on one side with a north-south lane running from the high school down to Ellen, and then the other side's parking. I don't know. I still have never. I understand it was all explained to me last time. I get it. I'm still saying that I prefer, if we're going to go with this type of a situation where we just have a designated lane, that it's just on one side. And then those bikes follow their rules on their little lane, and the cars follow their rules in their lanes in terms of north-south.
That's
I'm putting it out
feasible.
there. I'm putting it out there as my
I just don't
suggestion.
think that that's reality. I mean, if it was a path off of the road surface, I could see having two-way traffic on it. I can't imagine on one side of the street having two-way traffic for bicyclists.
Yeah, that's not permitted.
Yeah,
That's actually,
that's actually, okay.
the book that I was referring to, they prohibit that. They said, don't do it.
Okay. That's still what I like, though.
We'll put it by your house.
That's fine. That would slow down the people on my street then. We have no curbs.
Leah?
So it would be possible to do alternative one from Main Street to Ellen, or to, where would it go to for right now?
We could do it to any street we wanted. We
To
could do it
Morton.
anywhere. Yeah, we could do it anywhere we wanted.
Because Morton's the stop sign, right? I mean, unfortunately, that does not help the Cronin situation, but that would give us right now parking for the high school, which is what we need, and that section done. I'm personally not comfortable yet striping past Morton until, with a new plan, until we've had more time to think about it and discuss. And I think it was Dave who said the whole rest of Millview hasn't had a chance to be part of this conversation yet. So I'm not comfortable yet making a decision for the rest of Millview, even until we see the road diet and the changes at the Route 31 intersection happen. I feel like at that point we can come back and decide what we're going to do with Millview. But I would be okay doing the alternative one by the high school.
Currently, either Gary or how can you remind me, where does parking end coming north on Millview? Does it end at Ellen, or does it end up at the park?
How about the church?
Yeah, certainly by the park. I think it's Ellen. The residents would.
It ends at Ellen?
Oh, no,
Okay.
I thought, the beginning
Going
of that.
northbound on the east side.
Going north on the east side of.
I think it ends at
Ends
Ellen,
at
I believe.
Ellen. Because I think there's only one house there that.
Yeah,
Keep going.
right here, and then.
That's where the parking ends.
What about,
And there is no parking, I believe, on the east side.
On the east side.
There is no parking.
So from Main Street to Ellen, there's no parking on the east side today.
Yes.
Correct.
I say we stripe that from Ellen going back up to Main Street as option 1. We see how that functions with parking because we know it's going to be full of parking on the west side and how the bikes and the cars react in that section. And see how that works. See what happens with that. See how the bikes react to that. See how the cars react to it. And then from there down, we just leave it alone for this time being until we're ready to do the next part of the street and decide how do we want to handle it from Ellen all the way to 31.
I've got a question on that. Right now it's unstriped, or at least there's sort of a kind of a joke of a spattering of yellow dots down the way. If we do that option, what portion would remain entirely unstriped? What would we do with, do we have to decide now? Are we allowed to leave portions of that road entirely unstriped? As I
Some
think
of
it would
it
be under that
paved,
current
where's it
option.
paved to?
Up to the town.
Up to Town Avenue.
I think if it's paved, we need to stripe it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the concerns leaving it unstriped would be speeding. That when it's a sea of pavement, and that's why we had an edge line.
Unstriped.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying only to do option 1 from
Up to
Ellen
Ellen.
to Main Street.
Okay.
I think that'd be too confusing. I think we need to throw houses in the mix of this. Because we're just dealing with the school,
Yeah.
the students.
Currently, as it is,
Okay.
it's only parking on one side.
Then do we do as we originally planned and go all the way down to town?
And let's just clarify, we're talking about the southern end of town, because town hits both sides of Millview in 2 different places.
It would be the northern end or the the first crossing going south.
Yeah, the first one. Right here.
So you'd get,
And that's where the paving, the repavement has stopped?
Yep.
Okay. I thought it was the other side of town.
Okay, yeah.
it's all the way to the south
is,
end?
yeah.
South.
Okay.
It's a large portion of Millview we're talking about right now.
I think if we do anything like that where it's temporary, we need some key performance indicators but what are we basing our success on? More bikers, less incidents? We don't know how many incidents there are today, so that we can base this knowledge, because this isn't the last time this will come up. As we're going through our plan, I'm sure more things like this will come up. So the more data we can provide to constituents, the better.
But my question is what are you hoping to do with that data? What is that data going to say? Like
That data is going to tell us whether what we did changed anything, whether it promoted
but
more
we don't
biking.
know how many bikes are going down there yet. So we would have to start
That's my
with a
problem.
baseline.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and this is not fully connected to where it's in the plan where it's supposed to connect to. So we're only basically running the
All right, let's
bike
base
lanes
it off feelings then.
partway. No, we're not.
I'm just
basing it
looking
off
for
feelings.
facts and,
We're basing it
We
off
don't
the
have
fact
many
that
facts.
this is a collector street that we would like to have included in the bike plan to promote bicycling.
we would like to have including so what are we not including in the bike plan and why? Right? I mean, that's what we're going to get. So it's like, I'm being devil's advocate here a little bit because I feel like we don't have a lot of data and we're making a knee-jerk call when we got the whole street here telling us not to do it. So
But
we
this
just
isn't
need to
really a
proceed with
data
caution.
plan. This is more of a developed plan that was
We need to-
developed by.
We need to implement that with data, backing up where we're putting our bike paths.
But it was
right?
already
It was
implemented,
decided
voted
in the
on.
bike path or in the bike plan, active transportation plan, of which streets were going to be
As
designated
an overarching
that.
view, sure, but we should probably take more time on that. It's my point. We need to have data.
I just want to speak.
Start speaking, it'll come up.
Yeah, it's.
He's got a red light flashing.
I got red light. Somebody's got to.
Oh, you got it. You got it.
There we go. Okay. I do believe we do have data that the chief has told us about before about vehicular and bike incidents on Millview. And I don't remember what the number was, but I believe it was negligible. I'm not going to quote that though, but I know we have data on that. So that is something we do have data on in terms of incidents involving a vehicle and a bike. But in terms of the other data, I'm pretty sure there's none of that.
I thought it was throughout the whole town the chief gave us the data for.
Yeah,
but-
which was, but I mean, in terms of the whole town, he identified like a couple of incidents, I believe. I just can't remember exactly what he said. If he was here, he could remind us.
It's zero. Last 3 years, there is no
Zero,
accident.
zero on Millview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without any existing data, I think it would make sense to do this as a pilot where we do a portion and including all kinds. So there's residential portions to it, and we'll get anecdotal data from that because we don't have a base point. So any new data that we get isn't going to mean anything.
I couldn't agree with you more.
How far, we having a section that goes far enough to be able to see and people to be able to experience is going to produce that anecdotal data for us to decide, yes, this is working, this isn't working. We should go further, or no, we should go back and put it back the other way.
Yeah, my whole point was to say.
That's how we get closer to our vision of the active transportation.
Agreed, 100%. I just wanted us to put those baselines on the table. What are we going to measure, right? And if that's more bike traffic, that's, I think, what we should measure,
It could be the
right?
opinions of the residents that we're going to hear from. Maybe some people, after experiencing it, say, you know what, this isn't the.
Parking wasn't so bad, or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we'll never know.
I think parking's one of them we should do on there too. Yes, sorry.
Sarah?
So while we don't have a way to measure the data that would, potentially be useful for this conversation, we have heard from the experts in the Active Transportation Alliance, and this is a logical place for there to be the bike road because you have bikes that intend to go out west. There's all those farm roads and everything. And then it cuts back to the bike path when you go down Millview, and you can go anywhere in the western suburbs. So it is a logical option for that, and this is a safe choice. So while we don't have data, we do have experts that have weighed in.
I just want to jump in. I'm going to show my hand here a little bit. I think I agree with what Sarah's saying, that this makes a lot of sense. It was part of our plan and our vision, so I'm very in favor of the protected bike lanes, but I don't think we can forget that a whole room of people showed up here today with real concerns that I think are legitimate. And again, the new guy, but I hope that my intention is to try to help this plan move forward, and then we need to actively address the concerns that we heard here today. I hope that we hear them and we engage with the other city officials, and I'm sure you all know how to do better than I do, of course, to make sure that if parking issues come up, we're thinking about how we can address it. If there are services needed, how can we engage city services to sort of proactively address some of the concerns they've legitimately brought up.
Rod, how far where did the letters go to the?
I believe I sent it to 4 houses down from Town Avenue. So that's where it ended.
Oh, from the south part of it. So
I didn't
Dave
go.
brings up a very good point that, some of the.
I didn't go all the way to 31 just
but you
because
did
we
go
didn't
to
pay
town,
attention.
so-
Yes.
So that would-
Which town?
I believe the 4 houses down here, the town.
But this town, there's the other town.
Southtown.
That's the south end.
Showing you which one. It's the south one.
In the south.
Move your cursor up.
Yeah,
That's the north end.
that's the north end. But I believe we covered all this and then 4 houses down here. We didn't go there.
How far would we like to
Okay, so
go with the striping?
going to the northern town, at least it's to where all those neighbors were given the letter.
Yeah, so you'd have a cross street.
Wouldn't be to all of, it wouldn't be in front of all of those that got the letter, but there would be no one that didn't get the letter that had that. To Dave's point.
He said he sent it to everybody to Southtown.
Yeah.
To the lower
So
end.
I'm saying let's do a pilot to Northtown, and then you get a cross section to be able to see that where there's residential, so we can actually gather anecdotal data to see how this is working.
And that gives us 2 longer blocks from town to Danforth, and then Danforth up to Morton.
That have residents.
That's residential on both sides.
Sense to me to be able to measure how it's received.
Alan, I think I'm looking at the right document. It's the bicycle and pedestrian plan from 2023. And on this, on page 41, the bicycle route recommendation only shows a bike lane. If I'm looking at the map correctly, because there's no road names on here. It looks like just kind of where, hold on, where's my view? It just looks kind of like where the high school is. It doesn't show all of Millview as part of the bicycle route implementation that we voted on.
By 31, it's showing a shared marketing right here. Share.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
Because then you look at the, when you look at that, it just says bike lane. Sorry,
Well, I think
touching
in
the screen.
keeping with what we have in the active transportation, plan, I think we have to figure out how far south we go with this.
Right, I'm just saying what we voted on, yes, we voted on that we want to continue making this active transportation town and bike lanes, but specifically the map I'm looking at, and maybe somebody can prove me wrong, specifically though, it was only a very small part of Millview for bike lanes.
This as a long-term goal is to connect the network. So maybe as they're trying to work on these two, it's to connect everything with that.
In the future, yeah.
That's what I thought. So we only talked about like the whole park area.
Yeah.
Correct? That's what I thought, but okay.
And I think, the goal is to make these connections within the path, within the, the plan that we have. And yes, we only did half of Main Street because that's all we were working on. Now, when we do the other half of it, we're going to complete that section. So I think, this is the time for us to do that. Yes, it's $8,000 or whatever it is to run the striping and additional striping for the bike lanes. Not huge money, but it's also money. So, do we want to go all the way down to town, at the north end of town? And then that gives us several blocks to be able to gauge how that affects the neighborhood, how that affects bike traffic, how that affects car traffic.
If we were going to do that, why didn't we vote on that before? That's what I'm kind of now, I'm thinking back to the whole discussion now, and I do remember about the whole park area and about the neighborhood area. And I mean, that's the neighborhood I grew up in, but.
Are you talking from 2 weeks ago? Or
No,
are you talking from last year?
From the document she's bringing up, because I mean, I'm just trying to remember, and I don't remember all 50.
I don't remember much of last year.
50 pages of those documents or whatever, but, it would seem like maybe we were a bit more conservative with our initial thought of how we're going to roll this out. That's just.
Well, because I think we knew it needed some work. I mean, the overall idea is there, and that's 100% what we want. Now it's, okay, where do we draw the lines, right? And why? Because we have to justify everything we do. I mean, we're not just going to point at the map and be like, oh, well, I know a lot of people that take that route, so let's do that. It's like, well, okay.
And that was the job of the Active Transportation Commission, was to go through and pick those areas out, designate those as the bike lanes. And that was the reason that we have that commission, is to do that work.
Sure.
That's their job. That's their calling, is to get involved and do that. And then they bring that information to us. We said, okay, this is the plan you presented us with. And now when we have the opportunity to do the striping on a road that we just resurfaced, that's when we should do this. And then we have to decide how we want that designed. And that's what we were charged with 2 weeks ago, was to look at the options that were presented to us and say, do we want to do this? And I think now, if we want to do that and we wanted to gather data to see what it means before we carry that further, or we change our idea of how it goes further, in that plan and down that street, then we do that at that time. Abby, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to clarify that in the bike plan, it does say that their recommendation, the consultant that did it, its recommendation was to do a buffered bike lane from Main Street to Ellen. So a buffered being with, a couple feet of paint, but car lane would also count as a buffered bike lane. And then, I just lost my page. Where did it go? Then from Ellen to Goslin, shared lane, Ellen to Goslin, widen urban shoulders, and I'm not exactly sure what that means. And then from Goslin to 31, shared lane markings. So they were comfortable, obviously, taking one roadway and having a multiple different applications as conditions change throughout the roadway. Just reiterating my support for the same.
Okay.
I don't know, I would only support it up to Ellen.
Well, I think especially on that section, I think we need to do that. We need to do that now, because I think that that's imperative to get that done as quickly as we can with school starting.
I agree.
And then if we can't decide on what we're going to do on the rest of it, I say we stripe it as it is, or as it was beforehand from there south.
Well, no, we make a couple KPIs. If we hit them, we keep it going. If we don't hit them, we don't do it. I mean, I think it's as simple as that. We just got to figure out what those KPIs are.
But for the striping right now, you're talking about doing option 1 up to Ellen and then leaving the rest. But then our continued work before we make another decision is looking at how that's affected or deciding on what data points we want to look at.
I think one thing to remember is the roads being resurfaced is going to be all nice. Stripes can be placed, removed. I don't think that's a huge deal, especially with the cost and everything. So I agree with a very conservative approach to start with the striping. That's my thought on it.
I think we should, if we stopped at Ellen, we miss an opportunity to have some anecdotal data, see what it's like. And we're going to be in the same boat we are right now. Yeah, when we pick this discussion up again. If we can go a few blocks.
I agreed with Tony, yeah.
And then we got some data. Then we know what it's going to be.
Leah?
Or not be.
I would only be comfortable doing alternative 1 to the north part of town under the understanding that if it wasn't working well, that we would go back and do it to what it was before. And I don't know if we want to choose like a date, 6 months, a year, if we're finding that the parking is congested, because congested parking on that street is not going to make that a pleasant street. If we find, garbage pickup or bus pickup, all of that, whatever the concerns might be, it might be in 6 months, everybody's like, oh, this wasn't as bad as we thought. Glad we know that. And then we now know what to do with the rest of Millview. The other thing I would also ask, and I know our police chief is not here tonight, but between the school district and, our city departments to do better supervising of high school parking. If we're going to restrict parking, then we need to do our part to give them the parking they need.
And since our ward does border the east side of Millview, I'm kind of surprised to hear more about the truck traffic, because I have yet, in the 20 years I've been on the council, had somebody come and complain to me about truck traffic on Millview. So, that's a new one for me. Granted, I'm sure it can happen. And that's definitely something that we'll pass on to the police department to monitor and enforce.
Alderman Wolf, that concern has been brought to city staff and brought to the police department, and the police department has monitored for that specific concern.
Okay.
And
what's the result of that monitoring?
For truck traffic?
Yeah, right. Do we see much?
They haven't found excessive volumes that would suggest it's a regular cut-through route for commercial vehicles.
Robin?
Construction of the last couple of years and the repaving going on there has been a lot of trucks related to that construction. And that's how you get roads built. But that might be part of what's adding to that additional perception.
And any future change to striping would most logically occur next year when the other portion of the roadway is resurfaced and we'd have a contractor back out there again.
And I think we need a year's data because it has to be school and not school. I mean, it just has to be.
All the other events.
All seasons too.
All sorts of events.
You know, winter and versus anything else. I mean,
I don't know how you can make a decision on 6 months on a street that has completely different traffic on it at different times of year.
It would have to be over a couple of years. We've talked about this before with other decisions we've made, that we need to look at this. Solar was one of them. We have to look at that over a couple of years. There's a bunch of things that we have to look at over time. That 6 months, not even a full season of bike riding is going to happen in this time. I mean, I would just go to town personally, to Ellen, and just stop it there with section 1, stripe the rest of it the way it was, give us time. Again, we talked about this Prairie. I haven't heard, that's in my ward, I haven't heard people complain since then, saying, this has really been a nuisance.
Well, and that's why I think we should go down to town, because we need to have data of what it's like with parking on one side of the street in front of houses. It just can't be a park that has no.
But we have to make it clear,
issue.
it's not going to be 6 months. It's going to be a couple years of this happening, not just 6 months.
Well, we can have something in a year. Sorry.
Sarah?
I'm in favor of making sure we don't stripe past where the residents have been notified with everybody else. I think that going to town does give us a perspective of multiple facets, which is wise. I also think you're going to get different numbers of cyclists if it goes all the way through. So I think that is, I don't think we're going to get a full picture quite yet. Because I know I've ridden on streets and then a bike lane ends and it's like, oh, I don't want to go back there again because it doesn't go all the way. So I think there's just a lot of factors here. And again, that's why we have the consultants at the Active Transportation Alliance.
And the other thing is we don't have the money to do that every time we decide on this. Main Street's a perfect example. We did half of it because that was part of what we had available.
Budgeted.
And we knew that eventually we were going to have it all the way out to Randall. So, the reality of doing a portion of the street and we're happy with it, it works, it's okay, then we do the rest of it. Or we have different designs in different spots that fit that. I mean, we've talked about it in the past that, there's no parking on the east side, the entirety of that park. And is that really the best option, the best use to that space? I think we need to decide how far we want to go with striping. I think I've heard already that we're okay with going to Ellen Lane so far with it.
That's all I'm comfortable going to.
And then, do we go all the way down to the north end of town in Millview? So that way we can decide on if that's a good idea and that furthers the plan that we're trying to promote that we agreed to last year. So I guess those are, to me, the two options that we have.
I will just say, with the work that we did on Main Street, so we have Prairie Street where we had a lot of pushback. We had Main Street where we'd push back. And now here we are a couple years later, we don't hear anything about it. So that some of that is some of that data that we do need to take into consideration as we have done some of the work, but I am in support of doing this to town.
Who wants to go to Ellen, who wants to go to town?
Well, we're trying to give direction to staff because this is something that has to get done and striped.
One way to get direction, see who wants to go where.
Okay. I'd like to do a roll call vote so that way we have a record of this. So I'll say the first one is to do option 1 with parking on the west side of the street to Ellen Lane and the bike path striped as it is in option 1 from Ellen Lane to Main Street. That'll be the first vote. Roll call.
Barraza.
Aye.
Lancy.
Aye.
Beck.
Well, can I vote for both? But if I prefer town, do I vote just for town?
You can do it any way you want, Abby. I'm not telling you how to vote.
Okay, no.
Malone.
No.
Solfa.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Barron.
No.
Lehman.
Aye.
Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
No.
Ewer.
Aye.
Saran.
Aye.
Vogelsinger.
No.
So that's 8 to 6.
8 to 6. So that would be one option. Then the next option is to go from Main Street to the north leg of town with option 1. Parking on one side, 2 bike lanes.
Okay, Baraza.
Aye again.
Aye. Lancy.
Aye.
Beck.
Aye.
Keeper.
Aye.
Malone.
Aye.
Solfa.
Nope.
Wolf.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
Lehman.
Aye.
Ayazi.
No.
Malay.
Aye.
Ewer.
No.
Saran.
No.
Vogelsinger.
Aye.
So that's 10 to 4.
So I think we're going all the way to town with this, and I believe that that's probably the best thing we could do right now if we're going to try and develop data so that we can prove out what we believe is going to be the correct way to go for the street and for the active transportation plan, to try to make the connections that we want out of that plan and what we've asked the commission to come up with, and what the commission agreed was, the correct way to handle that. And I am glad, especially in the first block off of Main Street, that it's not behind the parking. I think that would have been a mistake for us. I think in real urban areas where you've got a curb or some other way to separate that makes it functional, but not on that street, not with youthful drivers.
And just so we're clear for staff, it's the north part of town.
Right, the north end of town. And then from the south end, just stripe it the way it was.
It was, okay.
Or, what was out there.
And just so we're clear, we're kind of using this as a trial.
It is a trial, and I guarantee you we will be back here talking about it again next year when we have the resurfacing on the next section of that street.
And what's the best way to communicate with the police department about extra surveillance of high school parking?
We can make that direct connection with the chief, and then that will be on their radar. I know that every year, as soon as school starts, they up that, because I know they get complaints from the people that are sitting out there that, that is a problem. Nick?
Yeah, I want to back up a little bit to the voting process, because several people voted for both because they're okay with both, but didn't give their preference. So I don't know if that was a true indication of what was preferred.
I won't speak for other people, but I will say in my case, it was because I'm okay with that striping setup and the street setup in either spot, in either distance.
Right.
What Alderman Saran is saying is that there should have been a preference. That's the way the votes usually
Which
work.
one do you prefer? You said you're okay with both.
I voted no for the first one and yes for the second one.
Right. Some people did that
So
way.
you have a preference.
Correct.
Yes, for both.
But those
But
that,
they had, you could prefer either or.
you can't.
You can't vote for
Because
every
you're
presidential
okay with
candidate. You're
both
supposed to vote
doesn't
for
mean
one.
You don't prefer one over the other. It's a flawed voting process. It should either be vote for Ellen or vote for.
I do agree, but, whatever.
Yeah, it's.
In the end, it would still, I think, end up the same way. Because if that was going to be what was my preference, then I wouldn't have voted for the first one. I'd vote for the second one because I think it should be done for the entirety of it.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. You actually, it's a great example. Your vote was moot when you did have a preference.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There were 4 of you that were muted, so we didn't really get a.
It'd just be like abstaining from the vote, just abstain then.
But I don't, like, he just gave an example, you didn't want to abstain, you preferred one over the other. So I'm not fighting to get a revote or anything, I'm just saying that's a flawed voting mechanism.
You can re-vote on just the Ellen if you want.
What's that?
Do you want to re-vote just up to Ellen?
Isn't this the prime
This is a
place
straw,
for ranked
this isn't
choice
a
voting?
vote for a thing, this is a straw poll for direction. That's what I'm saying, it shouldn't be, you have to vote aye or nay. You could vote Ellen or Morton, or whatever. Town, thank you.
Just as we close this up, I just want to remind everybody, this is a current bike route. And I think the reason why in the illustration that you were talking about, we were trying to figure out how to make those two areas a little bit safer. And that's where I think that's where the discussion came in, where we had a longer discussion, was to make those two sections, as they quote unquote said, safer. So it is a bike route already. It's how we are going to make it a safer bike route for all.
Okay. To Dave's point about whether or not this has to go to city council, this is just a discussion item. This is direction to staff. This is not an ordinance or a resolution that would be required to go from the COW to city council for final approval. It's already in the budget. It's just how we put the stripes down on the street. It was already approved when we approved the street work. So, no, that was decided when we did the striping.
So, Ellen, you're saying it doesn't need to go to a city council vote for the restriping of what our straw poll was just now?
Correct.
With that said, we are basically, this isn't just direction to get us back pricing or anything like this. This is, we're telling them how to stripe the street.
Correct.
In that regard, I think it would be in everyone's best interest, the residents especially, to get preferences from everybody to say, this is what I prefer, this is what I don't, and get a true vote instead of having many unknowingly abstain from the vote.
Want to take another vote?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll do another vote, and then that will be out of the way, and we'll have that.
Mine, I suggest that we just go around and say what you prefer, A or B.
That's probably the easiest, if the clerk doesn't mind taking it down that way.
A, B, and Ellen or town?
Just say Ellen or town.
Ellen or town?
Yeah,
Are people past Ellen? Is that the?
Not
Past town, past
Past
south,
town.
past south.
Past town. So a block further than we would say if we were approving it to town, the notices were sent out a block further than that.
Okay.
So the first one would be.
No, you just say your preference. She's going to take down the, what
Okay.
you say.
Start out with.
Peraza. Nancy.
Town.
Beck.
Down.
Pieper.
Down.
Malone.
Town.
Solfa.
Ellen.
Wolf.
Town.
Barron.
Town.
Lehman.
Town.
Ayazi.
Ellen.
Malay.
Town.
Ewer.
Ellen.
Saron.
Ellen.
And Vogelsinger.
Town.
Okay. So that's 4 to 10.
4 for Ellen,
4 for Allen.
10 for town.
Yes.
So same result, different path.
Different path. More definitive.
Everyone knows, too, and the public knows.
At some point, I would want, just to reiterate. Just to clarify what we're looking at in a year, so that when we come back in a year, we have 3 or 4 data points that we're looking at to say, these are the key indicators. Of course, there'll be a discussion around it, but I think we should have some top ones that say, okay, it's working. Or
I think one would be safety. So there's been 0 incidents so far. So if it goes up,
well, that's safety, right?
if it goes up, that's bad.
I'm more concerned about the amount of bikers, because you know what I mean. That'll be huge information for us moving forward as we're implementing these across the town. If this, if there's double the bikers already, I mean, okay, now we need to look at this harder.
We
So,
don't, yeah.
You don't know what the bikers are now, so
We don't
you
know it,
what's
yeah.
double.
Right.
So it's going to be based
We're gonna
on
know if there's a
anecdotal
lot.
data, when the experience that we have there is.
Or
gonna
we take
determine
this as
how
a
the discussion
lesson
will
and
go.
we direct staff from here on forward, if there are major thoroughways like this where we think there might be questioning from residents with dual parking on both sides, say it's Redant, for instance, by my house, this will be perfect data for that. And, we'll see. Unfortunately, we have to do it somewhere to get some data.
These are tools that we will be purchasing
Yeah.
this year's budget.
It's fantastic.
That is something that we can do going forward. If we receive approval for those items, we can.
Are those movable? Like nice, cool.
So based on what you voted, I was just thinking we were going to pave town to 31 next year. So I think maybe we wait one more year to get the data. So you'll have full 2 seasons of data. And maybe like in early 2026, we invite everybody from Ellen to all the way to 31. And we get their experience, the people who have lost parking and the people who are south, what do they think about driving next to a bike lane, or maybe we do a survey, not like everybody comes here and 3 hours, we develop a survey and get a survey data back from them. Just thinking out loud.
And that you'd be able to fit that into however you have the street program set up.
Yeah.
For the next couple of years, we just rotate one other street in place of that for next year.
Yeah, we should be able to do that. Yeah. So
that
we
would,
get
I
a
think,
survey
give us
data.
better data to make a decision on.
Yeah, I mean, that will be a KPI, like we send survey data and get some data back and see what people think about it. Because it's a test section.
Street then.
I'm sorry?
You can do Pine Street then, in front of my house.
I mean, I'm just thinking out loud in the last 5 minutes.
Pine and Redamp, we need a crosswalk.
I think that's probably better to have more data to make a decision to finish that out. And it also gives us an extra year to try to work on Route 31 in Millview. Okay. Thank you for coming down tonight and talking to us and expressing your concerns. Yes, yeah, if you want to come up. Any other comments?
Yeah, Rahad kind of beat me to that with his proposal of pushing off the paving another year. But I don't know as if you really need to push it off another year. What I was going to suggest was, based on your decision tonight, that you send a letter out to everybody you've already sent it to, along with the other people on Millview Drive all the way down, explaining what you've done and asking for their input between now and next, say, April, because when you go out for bid, you should know what you're doing. Ask them if they have a concern over the way things have been done, if they've noticed a problem with the parking, if they've noticed a problem with the bicycling, what have you, to contact XYZ. People are going to ask, why did you just go to town, the north end of town? You started out with going all the way to the south town connection. Now you're going to go just to the north town connection. So there's going to be a lot of, why did you do this? So you might as well inform them of why you're doing what you're doing, rather than waiting for everybody to say, what the heck are they doing? Just my thoughts.
I think that's a good plan.
Yeah, we can send a letter out to the resident saying it's a test section.
Right, that's a test section, and that's what we're planning on doing for the rest of it. But we also want to see how, after implementation, how it works.
Yep.
Okay, and now we will move on to item number 9, which is resolution.
Can I make a quick suggestion that we have Bonnie speak for 10? Can we flip 10 and 9?
Sure. Although we need to make sure we approve 9.
Okay.
I didn't even notice that.
You've sat through a lot tonight.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Bonnie Baumgartner. I'm Vice President, Board of Directors for Water Street Studios. I'm here on number 10 and number 11 to talk about something that hopefully has a lot less discussion. I will click on
Bonnie, it's the PowerPoint icon. It should be loaded up already. At the bottom? Yeah,
Okay,
right there.
thank you. Okay. So like I said, I'm here on behalf of Water Street Studios, and I am co-chair to the Batavia Public Art Initiative. Abby Beck, as you know, has phoned in. She is a representative for the Conservation Foundation. We're here to present the mural designs for the Art of the Fox series of murals that will be installed on the east side of this building we're in right now. Before we go into the actual designs, I'm just going to fan through them. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to review them ahead of time, but I did want to mention a couple of successes and just how the review process was done. It was a 10-person blind jury process. That means that any artist names were redacted to avoid any conflicts of interest. We did have a couple of committee members that had other conflicts of interest. They removed themselves from the voting process. We reviewed designs and artist portfolios to get a good representation of their artwork. The committee is comprised of Water Street Studios Board of Directors, professional artists, Conservation Foundation members, and there's also city representation. Successes. We had over 50 submissions from 40 different artists. I don't want to toot Water Street Studios' horn too much, but being on their board of directors, I should. Our neighbors, unfortunately, to the south of us, North Aurora just announced today that they had 0 submissions come in on their call for art. So for us to get 50 submissions, is pretty impressive. I feel like that really speaks to the community of artists that Water Street Studios represents. And not only the value of like a centralized art hub on opportunities being presented to artists, but also the way that artists can engage with the community and with the city. There's a shared benefit there that's really impressive. We have already reached out to North Aurora to offer our help in sharing it in our newsletter. And the Conservation Foundation has also offered for that to be a site location for a potential site location for a future installation. I'm just going to go through and show you a close-up. This is the mock-up of the City Hall windows. Oh, another success is that we're fundraising for 8, but we've raised enough money to do all 10, which is like a really nice, the whole bank of windows, so it's what we wanted to have ultimately. The only thing that's not represented on here is to the left of that southmost mural. We plan to put a plaque there that talks about the project. It will feature the City of Batavia, Water Street Studios, Conservation Foundation, and then any key donors we had. It's similar to the plaque that's at the Wave Petunia mural we did last year. So if anyone has any questions, just give a shout and I will do my best to answer them. So the first design is by Sherilyn Nat called Chasing Fireflies. It's done in watercolor, but obviously when it's installed, it will be done with exterior paints and or spray paint. The next is by Marty Niche. Okay, got it right. Following by Lisa Holzel. There is a small revision. We are waiting on this one to remove the frogs. Catherine Tilley is this mural artist.
Why the frogs are being removed?
It was just something.
Union issues.
Something the committee expressed that they wanted to see as a revision. Are you a fan of the frogs?
I like the frogs.
Frogs, it's kind of by the river. So. I love
Okay.
Star too. That's cool. Whatever. I'm sure it will still be beautiful.
This one, I already mentioned. This one's by Clara Brubaker. Oops, sorry. Sarah Engel. CJ Hungerman. Jonathan Belair. And lastly, Myra Miller. I don't know how the voting process works on this, but I think there's supposed to be 2 for tonight, one on the actual designs and then one on the contract, that the license agreement between Water Street Studios and the city of Batavia.
Right. The first one is item 10, which is Art of the Fox proposed murals for the Jeffrey D. Shelkey Government Center. And that would be the approval for the artwork to go up.
I see a hand for Abby.
Oh, Abby, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank Bonnie for presenting that. As the Conservation Foundation representative on the committee too, just wanted to reiterate our thanks for the support of the city and of the Batavia Public Art Initiative for helping along this series or this phase of Art of the Fox, which is our program to connect people to the beauty of the Fox River through art. And we're really excited for this program and this project. I'll abstain from the vote since it's too close to home. But if you have any questions about the program, about the Conservation Foundation's involvement, I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Abby?
What did your art submission look like?
That's funny. That's funny.
Motion for
Okay, yes, we
approval.
need a motion for approval to send this on to council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sulfa, second by Lehman. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And 1 abstention. Perfect. And then on to item 11, which is resolution 2024-108R, authorizing execution of a license for installation of artwork on public property.
Second.
Motion by Sulfa, second by Lehman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see you go up.
September, end of September, reveal party will be October 5th.
All right.
Thank you. And now we will move back to item 9, which is resolution 2024-109R, approving a contract with Superior Road Striping for Illinois Route 31 restriping program with a total amount not to exceed $175,172, which includes a 10% contingency. And this is the long-awaited road diet striping plan. So I will make that motion that we recommend that to council.
Second.
Second.
And okay, I'm going to give that one to Mark. Sorry, Abby. You're in delay tonight.
History.
I think this is something that, I'm happy we didn't have to have a special cow meeting for this to get this going, but I can't wait to see it ground off and restriped and start educating people that that's how it's going to be through Batavia. Because hopefully it works as it's designed. I know traffic's a little different with the train work up in Geneva, but it just seems to be so much different north of Fabian Parkway on a 3-lane road than it is on 4 lanes everywhere else from here south. So I really hope that this works, and I'm excited that we just keep talking about how we're going to work and fight to get a light down at Millview, because I think that's going to be really important for all of us to get behind and figure out how we get it done as soon as we can get it done. Because I think it's really important that that happens, and that's part of phase 2. I know we still have to talk about the downtown section, but the other one to me has more priority than the downtown section. So
I think it's easy to get used to. I mean, if you drive to Geneva, it's not difficult to figure it out. It's easy to get used to.
Abby has her hand.
Your Honor, you want to comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I have the opportunity in my work at Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, where I'm the chairman of the Council of Mayors, that the State Transportation Secretary is kind of the man that runs all this thing. And I've become, for whatever reason, very good friends with him. And I've made a bunch of motions for things he needed. And he told me at the last meeting that he was going to prioritize Batavia's program because of, we've been a good town to work with. And I said, well, we'd like to get the stoplight down. He says, well, we need to, so who's going to pay for it? It's a big thing. But I got the impression he's working on that too. But the problem he's got is IDOT is way understaffed, and they've been subject to all these budget cuts, and it's a staffing thing. So that's the problem. But
I know it's going to take cooperation, and I know it's going to take multiple jurisdictions, all of us together to get that to happen. And I really hope that, it works out as quickly as we can do it to make it be part of the plan that we just approved a section of, because I think it's going to be really important to have that done before or at the same time that they do that crossing there. Because that's going to just link up another section that won't have to go to somewhere else where there's a bridge to get here to go west. And that's going to add traffic, and that's going to add connectivity. So it's something that just has to happen.
I'm glad I had the connectivity with the Transportation Secretary to kind of get that moved along.
Okay. Abby, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to city staff for pushing this through, and to all of us for keeping with it as well. And I wanted to say, to a previous conversation, Alan, you mentioned the light at Millview, that we certainly can't let off the gas, no pun intended, on safety improvements along this stretch. That, certainly going down to 3 lanes is going to improve things so much, but it's not going to fix everything, and may even feel more comfortable to go a little faster once those lanes are a little bit wider, and it's you don't have semis coming right at you, or it seems like you've got semis coming right at you as you're going down the road. So I can't wait for the discussions on the downtown. I want to have more conversations about the rapid flashing beacons and replacing those with hawks, especially if we can't get a light at Millview. Replacing that at least with a hawk would be amazing. So just really looking forward to what comes next.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Thank you.
And we don't want to put that on the consent agenda. I want that on the regular agenda for Monday night. Okay, thank you. And now we will move on to item 12, which is ordinance 2024-054, execution of escrow agreement by and between the city of Batavia, buyer, and Aiken Properties LLC, sellers for 330 to 338 Webster Street.
Yeah, so we've obviously had a number of conversations about this property. City Council gave direction to inquire as to whether they'd be amenable to an agreement that includes both the cost of purchase, but also the cost of remediating the property. In doing our due diligence on the property, we did uncover some contamination, a potential underground storage tank, and some other issues due to past uses. The seller was amenable to including within the $500,000 purchase price, $200,000 of that can be drawn down on to be used for environmental remediation. So the way City Council should think about it is for $500,000, you're getting a clean parcel that is also in our downtown plan as a catalyst site. So those are our sites that can really spur future development, and that it puts you in the driver's seat of the development of that property. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is not budgeted for. It's something that council should be aware of. There are multiple funding mechanisms that you could choose to use to fund that. There's some TIF funds, general fund, et cetera, that you guys could ultimately choose from. But like we said, we're encouraging you to support this purchase. Like we said, it's in our downtown plan. It's a catalyst site. It would put you in the driver's seat of development, and this largely follows the direction you gave us previously as well.
Mark?
There are tenants there, so we will need to talk about, we're going to be leasing it to the people that are there, or is that being ended as part of this purchase? Do we know?
Yeah.
Well, okay, tenants, whatever, but there is somebody there. So is that lease being canceled, or do we know?
I do not know. I can ask Laura when she's back tomorrow.
Other questions? Okay. then I will make the motion that we approve or recommend to council ordinance 2024-54, execution of escrow agreement between, or by and between the city of Batavia buyer and Aiken Properties LLC, the sellers, for 330 to 338 Webster Street.
Second.
Motion by Wolf, second by Ewer. Roll call, please.
Baraza.
Aye.
Lancy.
Aye.
Beck.
Aye.
Pieper.
Aye.
Malone.
Aye.
Sofa.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
Lehman. Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
Aye.
Ewer.
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
Vogelsinger.
Aye.
It's 14.
And then on to item 15, or item 13, ordinance 2024-53, execution of a purchase and sale agreement for purchase of 330 to 338 Webster Street.
Same continuation. One's an escrow agreement, one's a purchase agreement.
Do they need to be in that order? Or should it be in the other order when we take it to council?
We'll change the order for council, and it'll also require, I believe, a 2/3 vote for final vote. So those will be clarified, and I'm not sure why they were in the wrong order, but they will be fixed for council.
Any questions on the property or the agreement? Everybody get a chance to look at it. Okay, I'll make the motion that we recommend to council ordinance 2024-53, execution of purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of 330 to 338 Webster Street.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Baraza.
Aye.
Lancy.
Aye.
Beck.
Aye.
Pieper.
Aye.
Malone.
Aye.
Sofa.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Barron.
Aye.
Lehman. Ayazi.
Aye.
Malay.
Aye.
Ewer.
Aye.
Saron.
Aye.
Vogelsinger.
Aye.
It's 14.
Thank you. And we'll move on then to 14 with project status.
I'll make this quick since we're approaching our 10 o'clock rule. A couple of quick things. One, Lori's gone ahead and created an official Nextdoor account for the city of Batavia. So if you are on Nextdoor, we are also now on Nextdoor. So check us out, like our posts. Nextdoor is a community-based social networking app. I'm assuming you're familiar, and that was a rhetorical question.
It's awful.
So yeah, we're on Nextdoor. September is Emergency Preparedness Month. That's something that was in our strategic plan as well. As you saw in our updates, we've been doing some tabletop exercises. So we're putting together some videos and communications plans to improve our community's readiness ahead of Emergency Preparedness Month. City staff also launched our Batavia Business Pulse Survey in partnership with the Chamber and Main Street. That went out to almost 400 businesses across the city. Please promote it amongst your networks. It should be in their inboxes. If they have any questions or if you're a business who did not receive it and think you should have, reach out to Anthony and we'll get that survey sent out to you right away. We encourage you to fill out that survey because it's going to serve the basis for our economic development strategic plan. Gives us back some valuable data to be able to make decisions long term. There's been a whole host of projects on Plan Commission and various other commissions. There's been some review of sign replacements, and there also has been some discussion. There will be a discussion in a couple weeks about land cash requirements for schools and park districts. That'll be on the COW for the 8/27 meeting. We have extended 3 conditional offers of employment to full-time firefighter candidates, so hopefully those go well and we'll bring on some more folks. We held our inaugural National Night Out with our police department. That was something that was extremely well attended. It was a little bit of a cool and misty evening, but our folks were extremely happy to have been putting on that event. It was great to see so many of you and the community members there. And there's also some news coming that we have purchased a comfort dog. That's something that you should keep an eye out for. I talked to Sean today about it. It still has to go through extensive training. We are still working on a name as well. So that's something that we know everyone is extremely interested in, and we will keep you apprised as we find more details.
What kind of dog is it?
It is a yellow lab.
Oh.
It's currently 10 weeks old. Yeah, it's a... I have heard they may be around soon. Myself and Bill Kellum attended a debris management training hosted by IEMA. Similar to our emergency preparedness, this continues that goal. The pavement markings at First and Water have, I think, nearly been completed, if not fully completed at this time. We were waiting on some delivery of equipment and other things to be able to get that done, but that has since been completed. And that's really all I have.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the markings on First Street look really good. And coming down the hill, they're very vibrant. It definitely catches your eye. So thank you, Gary.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Does anybody have any others this evening? Tony?
Yeah, real quick. I was going to give a report on the TRICOM Central Dispatch as a board member, seeing how this meeting's run late. I'll save that for another date, but I do just want to put on your radar that there's been on the board for TRICOM has been a work team that's been revising the intergovernment agreement, which is coming up for renewal. It's a 50-year-old document that's been amended, and so they've been doing some great work with it. But as that comes out, I'll give you more information on that before you get it before you. So,
all right, thank you. Anybody else with any others? Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. All right.
Barely.
When I was looking at that plan, I was like,
Hey, guys.
just for the route, but then I think that was